this button here.
All right, I've got 6:30. It's Tuesday, November 19th, 2019. I'm Mayor Tome here to call the Columbus Common Council regular meeting to order. Before we get started, I did want to point out we have a new face at the front table. That is David Berner. He's our interim administrator that started with us yesterday through Public Administration Associates. Nice to have you here with us, David.
Good to be here, and thank you for the opportunity. Look forward to working with all of you.
Great. Thank you. All right. Pat, could you please take a roll call for us?
Gray,
Present.
Johnson,
Here.
Reed,
Here.
Ryan, Tome,
Here.
Traxler.
Here.
Highland is excused.
Thank you. If able, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. This meeting has been noticed in accordance with state statutes and local ordinances. Next item is to approve the agenda for the evening. Unless there's any alterations or deletions, I'll take a motion to approve the agenda.
Make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second. Motion and a second to approve the agenda as submitted. Any discussion on the motion? If none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Agenda is approved. Correspondence and communications. I think I saw one signed up back there. Pat, could you grab that? Thank you. We have one person signed up this evening. That's Mark Krause. If you could please come up to the podium, just state your name and address.
Here in Columbus. And the main purpose for being here today is we did a survey on the street of the road project, which I made the original copy and 3 copies for you. But there were 4 questions on the survey, and all but 3 neighbors were approached because they weren't available. But the first question was if they supported a new street, and 93% do support a new street. Everyone pretty much is in agreement. We do need a new street. 82% support curb and gutter, which is also great. 61% oppose widening the road from 20 feet to 28 feet, and 97% oppose the sidewalk nowhere. And again, it'll only connect at Dick Street. There are no side streets that have a sidewalk, and no one seems to see the need to have that sidewalk, plus the dangers that we presented last time. Again, I'm kind of appalled by the city and the lack of notice that we received on this project, because typically I think you should be receiving at least a 6-month to a year notice that a street is going in. And it really kind of sickens me that one of the residents literally bought their dream home on Charles Street, and we're all excited about buying their home, only to find out days later that a street was going in and they had no notice. Proper notice, it would have been on a condition report, and it probably would have been the seller's responsibility, and now the buyer's picking up that tab. I know that they're pretty upset by it from talking to them, but it just seems like this project is really being pushed through really quick. I'm also kind of in that same situation. I mentioned it last time. 2 years ago, I bought my home, and I called the city because I knew the street was in bad shape. I asked if a new street was going in, and it was not on a 5-year plan. And here we are 2 years later, and my offer would have been different. So, it doesn't seem like it's the right move. Regarding tomorrow's meeting, I'd strongly encourage all of you to be there. I know there's a lot of questions, a lot of concerns, and I'm sure all the people on Hibbard Street would really appreciate it. Thanks.
All right, that's the only person I had signed up. Was there anyone else present this evening that did not get a chance to sign up that wished to speak under citizen comment? Seeing none, we'll move on to the consent agenda. On the consent agenda, we have the council and committee of the whole minutes from November 5th, 2019, street closing request for Columbus Downtown Development Committee for the holiday parade on November 29th. Picnic license for the Chamber of Commerce for their Stop, Shop, and Sip event for November 30th, and applications for operators licenses for the term of July 1st, 2019, June 30th, 2021. Any questions on the consent agenda? All right, entertain any action from the council on the consent agenda.
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve the consent agenda as presented. Any discussion on the motion? If none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Consent agenda is approved. We'll move on to new business item number 1, which is consider and take action on the wastewater treatment plant HVAC project. If I understand correctly, this was brought forward as a change order on the project at the committee of the whole. I'm trying to follow my minutes from the committee of the whole since I wasn't present at the last meeting, sorry. I believe the change order would result in the addition of $7,516.46. Any questions on this? Jason is here. He might be able to answer some of them. If there are no questions, I'll entertain any action on the change order for the wastewater treatment plant HVAC project.
I move to approve the change order plan for the HVAC project.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the change order for the wastewater treatment plant HVAC project. Is there any discussion on the motion? If there's no discussion, could we please take a roll call, Pat?
Johnson,
Aye.
Reed,
Aye.
Ryan,
Aye.
Traxler,
Aye.
Gray,
Aye.
unanimous.
Thank you. Item number 2, consider and take action for pavilion rental fees for next year for 2020. I'm not sure if the memo in here is updated. It looks like it's for this meeting. There must have been some conversation at the committee of the whole meeting reflecting the recommendation that came from the Rec Advisory Committee on the increased amounts. From my understanding, they were proposing originally $1,000 for residents and $1,250 for non-residents, and the recommendation was to go $1,000 for residents and $1,500 for non-residents. Is that correct? I also see some highlighted language in the contract or rental agreement in here. That must have been part of the discussion as well.
Right, there was some questions as to the returns of deposits and the period involved with that, and had a good point there, and Amy Jo made that change.
Right. Are there any further questions on this item? Amy Jo is here this evening. There are none. I'll entertain any action on new business item number 2 for the pavilion rental fee.
I'll make a motion to approve the pavilion rental fees for 2020.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the pavilion rental fees for 2020 as reflected in our packet. Is there any discussion on that motion? If none, could we please take a roll call on that one, Pat?
Reed,
Aye.
Ryan,
Aye.
Traxler,
Aye.
Gray,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
motion carries.
Thank you. New business item number 3, consider and take action for snow plowing on Summit Court. This is something that has happened between the city and the Summit Court Condominium Association for several years. It looks like there's no money that's exchanged for this service due to the size of the street. The condo association uses a pickup truck to push the snow to a certain point, and then the city takes care of it. Questions on that one? Zach is here. If there's no questions, I'll entertain any action from the council on new business number 3.
Make a motion to approve the snow plowing services agreement with for Summit Court.
Second.
Motion in 2 seconds to approve the snow plowing agreement with the Summit Court. Any discussion on the motion? There's no discussion. All those in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. New business number 4, consider and take action on a request to donate baby lots and cemetery to Prairie Ridge Hospital. Trying to look at the minutes on here. I didn't understand some of the audio on the actual meeting due to the new broadcasting system, but it looks like forward to the November 19th regular meeting, in future request the hospital purchase the lot. Understanding they're asking for the donation of 1 baby lot, two baby lots. Would be the cost of $300 for baby lots, so they're asking for 2 of them. Gary, discussion on that? Right. If there's no discussion, I'll entertain any action on the donation of the baby lots, item number 4.
Move we approve item number 4, the donation of baby lots for Prairie Ridge Health in the Hillside Cemetery as promoted by the Hillside Cemetery Board.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the donation of the baby lots cemetery to the Prairie Ridge Health, recommended by the Cemetery Advisory Board. Any discussion on the motion? If there's no discussion, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Motion passes. New business number 5, consider and take action on ordinance number 751-19, an ordinance amending city ordinance section 86-226 sub B to include reference to the fee resolution as adopted by council. This, I think I understand, but it seems like it's going to make it easier for us to adjust our fees without amending the ordinance every time we want to do it. Is that correct?
That's correct. This is the beginning of making that shift throughout your code as it comes up and as it comes around. Instead of having a specific dollar amount in the ordinance itself, the city council can adopt a resolution at any time to adjust fees as it deems appropriate. So a little bit simpler and a little bit easier.
Okay. Any questions or discussion on that? No, this went through the committee of the whole. This is an ordinance change, so we would, if we wanted to adopt this evening, suspend the rules and waive the reading. Is that correct? All right. Council would like to adopt this evening. Would ask for a motion to suspend the rules.
I move to suspend the rules.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to suspend the rules. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Rules are suspended. And we would need a motion to waive the reading.
Motion to waive reading.
Second.
A motion and a second to waive reading. Any discussion on that motion? If none, all those in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Reading has been waived. And then finally, we can take a motion to amend the ordinance.
Motion to amend the ordinance.
All right, we have a motion and a second to amend ordinance 751-19, an ordinance amending city ordinances section 86-226 sub B to include reference to fee resolutions as adopted by the council. Is there any discussion? There is none. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Number 6, consider and take action on assessment error as culpable error under state statutes 74-33 or .33, subject to refund or rescinded taxes and procedure refunding property tax under state statute 70.43 and 74.41 for parcel number 112511-1520.007. This did go whole process go through. That's important.
That is correct, Mayor. You have 2 separate and distinct things that are going on here. It was a improper assessment, basically a complex condominium, which one unit was assessed the entire tax bill for a couple of years ago. The error has been created has been found, and in order to refund the person that was taxed twice culpable error procedure, approval of the council, that money to the, excuse me, to the property owner. The other part, unit that was not taxed at all, needs to go through committed property, because that unit have the opportunity to object with the board of review process, and obviously didn't even know about it. So that is a process that will be followed up. So for right now, we can fund the money through the process of assessor will
Tax, help, or property tax.
That's
I move to fund the property tax as culpable error. I-
Tax, culpable property. Question? Aye. Opposed? Item number 7, consider and take action on quote for postage meter at City Hall. I believe there's some updated information that we put in here after first with poll. I did talk to staff a little bit about this, get a better understanding of it. Sounds like the current postal meter that we have is no longer provided support, very old, and so staff they broke down the annual costs with this. See, there's no annual maintenance cost for the first year with the Pitney Bowes, but then they show what that cost shows a small savings. Are there any questions on this?
No questions, but I do want to express my appreciation for the way that this is presented. It's more, this combined with the information that we received at the first meeting is more clear and strong case. I make a motion that we approve the purchase of postage meter for Pitney Bowes.
Motion a second to approve the purchase of a new postage meter from Pitney Bowes for City Hall. Discussion on the motion. If there's no discussion, please take a roll call.
Ryan,
Aye.
Traxler.
Aye.
Gray,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Reed.
Aye.
Motion.
On to item number 8, consider and take possible action on easement to We Energy parcels 8A and 94. Yes, or if information was updated or just a cover sheet that was updated. Attorney Johnson.
There was actually a letter from We Energies, which I believe is the updated part. That is, should be dated November 19.
Yep, it's at the back of the packet, correct.
Yeah, that's the main update. The issue here, the easements themselves have been revised a little bit since the committee of the whole meeting, and they all of the concerns that of city staff have been addressed in the 2 easement documents itself. What you have not seen before is a third document, which is called the temporary easement, which I think should be in your collection of materials as well. That is a document that we asked We Energies to prepare because they were requesting the ability to basically go across the entire parking lot on the parcel that is not behind the cage. That must be 94, yes, on parcel 94. So they've asked for a temporary easement to basically get from the street to their workspace by going across the parking lot, and then they promised if they do any damage to the parking lot itself, they will repair that as well. And I reviewed the temporary easement this morning and didn't have any objection to what the terms are pretty standard. The main issue for your consideration tonight and is found in your code of ordinances requires any time that a street is opened for any kind of work that a $5,000 bond to be posted as part of the street opening application. We Energies has requested a waiver from that requirement, and that is the letter of November 19th that you see. They are requesting the waiver because they're We Energies, and they are a multi-million-dollar utility company, and they are promising, as you can see from the other letters, to clean up everything and take care of whatever damage that they do. So they're requesting the waiver. There is so that's what your ordinance says. There is a PSC regulation that basically says that municipalities can regulate and can require these bonds provided that they have reasonable grounds to question the financial responsibility or compliance ability of the utility. So that's kind of your law to look at. They're requesting the waiver, and that's the decision you
To understand that there could be some financial hardship for a resident. Don't, but it's, how do they have a problem with a $5,000 bond? They have to do this in other communities?
No, that's the problem.
Okay.
Or they generally don't do this. They have self-insurance, which is not related to the bond issue itself. And there is a letter, I think, in your materials from their field supervisor that basically says, look, we're going to come in and we're going to clean this all up and we're going to do a proper.
We have two easements that were granted them, a permanent easement and a temporary easement. Is that correct?
There are two permanent easements, one for the parking lot and one that is for a little strip of land behind the cage. And then the temporary easement is for the parking lot project, which will go away when the project.
So what protection do we have if we waive the bonding handshake?
Their word. And the fact that they'll be back to more work in the future. I mean, invariably. I would assume it's an ongoing project.
Concerns from the council on this?
Not.
All right. Questions? I'll entertain any action then. Item number 8.
I move that we approve the easement request from We Energies for parcels 8A and 94 without bond.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the easement parcels 894. Discussion. There's discussion. Is a voice vote good enough, Paul?
Yes, did you address the bond issue? Okay, thank you. Okay. Oh,
Right.
voice vote's fine then.
Okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes. On number 9, consider and take action on mayoral appointment, Rolf, Water and Light Commission. Sorry, I wasn't able to demo. Rolf Lang has been on Water and Light some time. He did a wonderful job. Serve on the for another term. Serve another term. Questions? 9.
I move we approve the mayoral.
Second.
Appointment 12. Discussion. All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed? 10. Take action on claims in the amount of $408.01. Packet outlining the purchase orders, the red lines, and also the correct put in there. Narrative packet explain that. Questions on the claims?
Just this is the second time they've had this error. Is there a plan in place to prevent this error in the future?
That I don't have an answer for. Tim, did you want to address that?
Yeah, this time the situation was more staff error than software error. And we just kind of revisited the process of approving purchase orders. What happens with Cassell is when you hit all, it pulls all forward that may be out there that were pending or closed originally. And you can see a lot of those purchase orders were ins and outs. There was a net effect of 0. And so just kind of taking the time to kind of go through that again with that individual. It's just a learning curve in for this situation.
Thanks, Kim.
Thank you, Kim. Any other questions on the claims then? There are none. I'll entertain any action.
Motion to approve the claims in the amount of $104,802.01.
Second.
A motion, a second, to approve the city claims in the amount as read. Discussion. If there's no discussion, please take roll.
Traxler,
Aye.
Gray,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Reed,
Aye.
Ryan.
Aye.
Motion
Report of city officers. Start off here. Another reminder that the public information meeting for the Hibbard Street reconstruction 2020 is Wednesday, October 20th. That's tomorrow at the Senior Center at 30 p.m. We believe we're going to have possibly a quorum of members there from the city council. So, waiting. Also, a reminder that our next city council meeting has been scheduled for Monday, December 2nd, due to the arrival of the holiday train on Tuesday 3rd. Canadian Pacific holiday train is scheduled to arrive at about 9:05 p.m. We will receive a full 30-minute show again this year. The show is scheduled to run from 9:15 to 9:45. Please help support the mission of the holiday train by bringing healthy, non-perishable food donations or monetary donations to help the Columbus Fall River Food Pantry provide assistance for those who are in need this holiday season. The holiday lights and wreaths have been installed on the downtown light poles, and the holiday tree at the library lawn was decorated yesterday. Thanks to everyone who supported this effort through donations, as well as the Columbus Water and Light W crews for installing those items. It'll be wonderful to see those items during the holiday parade tree lighting ceremony, which Friday, November 30. Thanks to Council President Traxler for running the last City Council meeting and allowing me to take time to deal with important family issues, which required me to leave town for that. Very much a long night here. Also want to thank city staff again for the continued efforts, and the council as we work through the busiest time of the year with annual budget, lots of additional meetings and other responsibilities. Staff with vacancy in the city administrative position to all your efforts. And again, wanted to welcome David Berner here, have you on board, to have you here since you're working through PAA. Will be the same firm that we're working with to find the administrators, so to have boots around here benefit. Wanted to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving to everyone. Enjoy your holiday. Here to add, or if David to say anything.
Started yesterday, had a good day. Participated in the City Hall staff meeting. Everyone's been very friendly and helpful, and look forward to working with you all.
We are
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, David.
You're welcome.
Right. If there's nothing else, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
A motion to adjourn?
Second.
Motion and second to adjourn. All those in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Stand adjourned for a few minutes, and we'll return with the committee of the whole meeting. Thank you much.
All right, welcome back to the Committee of the Whole for Tuesday, November 19th. The time is 7:12 p.m. Pat, if you could please take the roll call.
Gray,
Present?
Johnson,
Here.
Reed,
Here.
Ryan,
Here.
Holm,
Here.
Traxler,
Here.
Tylen is excused.
Thank you. This meeting was noticed in accordance with state statutes and local ordinances. First thing up we need to do is approve the agenda. I don't have any changes.
Make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the agenda as presented. All in favor? Or, sorry, any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Citizen comments on items. Is there anybody signed up? Anybody not signed up that wish to speak tonight? All right, next up I have department reports. We have the police report for October, the Department of Public Works report for October, the fire department report for October, and the treasurer's report for October. Any questions or comments about the department report? All right. Next up I have number 6, committee minutes. We have minutes from the EMS from 11/1, the library board from September 17th, and the Columbus Water and Light from October 10th. Any questions on the report for the minute? All right. Thank you. First up tonight, we have number 7, review fees for snow removal options. And I believe we have Zach here tonight from Department of Public Works to introduce this to us.
Good evening. So as we've spoken a little bit before regarding the snow removal fees, we are quite out of date with our fees. Right now we're pretty much just a cheap snow shoveling service for those in town who don't do it themselves. So I have put together a few other options after putting it out to some of the other public works groups in the surrounding Metro Madison area, kind of see what everybody else is doing here. And like I said, we're not really breaking even on this work, so if the city decides to increase fees to recoup costs, we'll be able to break even, and if the city decides to add in a graduated fee for repeat offenders, we might even be able to see a little bit of revenue from this work. You'll see our current process in there, which is quite cumbersome, along with the wages. So right now it's costing us approximately $91.75 for each sidewalk we do. So we could keep our current structure the way it is, the way I have it laid out there, where you just essentially I would recommend in that sense we would raise our fees to $100 per violation just to cover our cost. With this, we could add in a graduated increase of fees for each violation, as was kind of mentioned. There's some interest in that. $100 the first time, tack on an extra $50 the second, and so on. However, council would like to see that happen. Another option that I thought we could possibly look at with this, which would include a little bit more work with the ordinance as well, but that would be to remove the 24-hour notice after the first violation. Essentially, you get one notice at the beginning of the year that you didn't shovel your sidewalk, and we're going to be back in 24 hours to do the work. And after that, we will do it as soon as there is a complaint. That saves a lot of staff time going back and forth, as well as gets the job done in a much quicker fashion. Because if the resident complains about this work on a Friday morning, well, we're not going to get to clear that sidewalk until Monday at that point. We've got a couple days of dangerous sidewalk work not being done. The other way would be to change the structure. Some of the new structures I've seen coming out of communities is they will charge essentially it would be like a $100 setup deployment fee for us, which would be our cover administrative costs and staff time. And then to kind of help with that, it would be $1 for every foot shoveled between 1 and 30 feet, which is the approximate general length of a normal frontage of a sidewalk. And then for everything over 30 feet, it would be $2 per foot. And that's something you could easily change. You could just leave it at $1. You can make it $2 for the first 30 feet. Whatever that number wants to be, that's just kind of what I've seen there is that $1 the first time and $2 after 30 feet. And then again, we could add in a graduated increase for fees for this violation and look at possibly removing that 24-hour notice. So those are the two recommendations that I would strongly look at. My preference would be to change the structure and do that $100 deployment fee and then look at the footage after that. But I'm open to some conversation and see what everyone's thoughts are on it.
Okay. Go ahead, Ian.
I like the incremental fees going up and the dollar per square foot. I'm not super comfortable removing 24-hour notice. Maybe shrinking it to 12, but moving it entirely.
Well, so let me restate that. We wouldn't remove the 24-hour notice. You would get a 24-hour notice the first time it happens in the year, and then in that notice it would say this is essentially your one warning. From now on, if it's not shoveled after, you still get 24 hours to do the work. Residents can't call and complain 4 hours after the snowfall and expect us to come out there and shovel it. They still get 24 hours to clear after the snow falls. It essentially would say, okay, it snowed on Tuesday, it's now Thursday, the resident called and complained. We already have on record, we've been to their place once and given them a notification. We don't have to give them another notification. We can just go out there and clear it. If that makes any difference to you or not.
That makes a lot more sense. As long as they have a full 24 hours to clear
Right.
it themselves after the snowfall, that makes it a lot more helpful.
Yeah.
Karina?
Oh, I think he.
No,
Oh.
she,
Being polite. Okay. Yeah, I had the same initial concern as Ian for, how do you make sure that they know that the 24 hours has truly occurred? I mean, you would know when the call came in
Correct.
and have
Yep.
that noted.
Yep. So we keep track of when we can, say the storm is over, and then it's 24 hours from that before we even will kind of entertain complaints regarding sidewalks. But like I said, they would still get their a one warning a year type of thing, and then they would know that we're serious about this and we're not going to come out and be their free service all winter long, or I shouldn't say free, but cheap service, and we're taking this seriously to make our sidewalks passable for all that need it.
And I definitely wouldn't be comfortable going with the most expensive option. I'm just not okay with doing the $100 for set of deployment and $1 per foot for 30 feet and $2 per foot after the 32 feet. And that's just seems like it would be an unreasonable burden for a number of residents if they are having just $200 bills, if whatever out of town emergency. I mean, I know the sidewalks have to get cleared, but I'm just trying not to be too burdensome. If there was going to be the per foot, then maybe it might be a $75 setup fee, and then charge $1 per foot after 30 foot or something if it's an unusually long sidewalk.
Well, we want to make sure we're at least recouping our costs, which are at $91.75 as it stands right now. So that's where the $100 recommendation comes in.
For the administrative cost, is it usually a full hour, or would a half hour? How does that work?
That's between anywhere from that's your call coming in, taking some of that time, processing the addresses as they come in at Public Works, and then it also has to get processed again up at City Hall for the billing part of it. So that's that's two people essentially at a half hour where you get your hour.
Okay.
I like the possible change structure and support that. I don't think that we should be subsidizing people not shoveling or giving them a inexpensive service. But I also agree with what Trina is saying here. I think that we want to get the habitual offenders. That's what we're going after. I know I have to leave the city for the holidays. I try to be good to my neighbors so they cover me while I'm gone. But if I didn't have them shovel my sidewalk once and I became a habitual offender, then I'm going to get the biggest charge possible if something should happen. So I think maybe we could weed out the habitual offenders. Maybe it's not the first offense, but if you see a pattern, if it's 2 or 3 times per season, then after that you start waiving that 24 hours or
we would have to set that number, so
yeah,
to give us the guidance to do that work.
Yeah.
If that's something
I'd like to kind of start that way a little bit, just so we can weed out the habitual offenders, because I know that you have them. The other thing too is the base cost of $91.75. There's administrative costs that are probably going to be the same all the time, but the actual cost for the crew to be out there is probably different for a standard residential, 60-foot frontage versus someone who's got a large lot with a corner lot or something like that. It's much more expensive. So I'd like to build in that incremental per foot to kind of capture your cost there, because that's where the crews are at. So
Correct.
the administrative cost would be the same case to case, but I think the crews should be, we should be keeping track of their work. So I like per foot, but I think getting that base cost for the average, 60-foot lot compared to a larger or commercial lot, is where we could be a bit more aggressive. That's kind of a balance to change, and also, it's going to be the first year, so I think people are going to have to get used to it. But I think taking a few baby steps in that direction. I appreciate all the work that you've done in getting us other crews act.
Ed?
I just wonder about the, because this is a new policy, I'm just wondering if potentially the waiving the 24-hour rule, if it maybe makes more sense to wait until somebody is shoveled, that the city actually does it, that they have an actual violation, not only that they received a notice, but we've shoveled them before we then go and waive the 24-hour rule on future calls and on a complaint basis. It just, to me, it seems like you got one green tag, and the next time it snows, if it goes 24 hours, you're getting, I agree with the increased fees, but I'm just wondering if that would be, and we see how that works, and then maybe next year, if it's like, we'll have problems, that we go to you get one green tag, and then you're automatically on the 24-hour clock, and you're going to get shoveled. Also, so that's one thing I throw out council to consider and get your thoughts. Second question I have is, how would it work if you got a call at 4:30 on Friday and the person had met that initial criteria, that they'd already had one violation, you went out and shoveled, so they're subject to the 24-hour rule. But let's say the call comes in on a weekend or a Friday afternoon, when would you contemplate the city doing the shovel?
The way it stands right now, it'd be done Monday morning. And to follow up on your other part there, so from what I understood, you're kind of thinking more of the mayor's, maybe like a 3-strike rule versus.
I don't know if it's a 3-strike rule, but in order to have the second 24-hour, as I understand the way you're saying, is remove the 24-hour notice after first violation. I guess I'm defining violation as an actual violation where we shoveled,
Correct.
as opposed to a violation that you merely got tagged. That's what I'm defining violation.
Understood. Okay. Yep. That makes sense.
Katie?
I just also had a question that occurred to me. I know there's several residents in town that are rentals, rental properties, and how that would work with your proposal of that rule. Let's say Sue's renting it in December, but lease is up January, and suddenly the resident then doesn't shovel. How would you then know and be notified if you?
Yeah. No, that's a very good point. I really, we don't have any way to know when those change hands.
Right.
So we really wouldn't have, if that happened in the winter.
So
I think it'd be
24-hour notice thing. It would be.
Right. Yep. I think you could definitely run into problems there. I think that's definitely maybe a point where it just gets left up to my discretion. If they call and say, hey, look, we just moved in here last month, like we definitely didn't get this notice. And at that point, that might be a discretionary thing, because I really truly don't think that would happen too often, but
Probably
it's
not.
definitely a possibility.
And when you have vacant properties as well, I know there was a few houses winter that I noticed that had a problem with their getting their sidewalk shoveled. So, and some landlords are out of state too. So
Yeah,
I
it's
mean-
definitely a tough deal there. And as far as notification goes, I think at some point we have to hold our property owners responsible. They, if they're out of state, they've got to know they know it snows. They know this is part of the deal. And it saves us a lot of money in time and money if we know these vacant properties that are never addressed, whether it's grass or snow or any other property complaints. if my staff's already out clearing city sidewalks and they know that, hey, I'm gonna pass this vacant property on the way and I know they're not gonna clear it, I can hit it on the way versus coming back tomorrow and starting up all this process for 1 or 2 properties.
I'm in favor of the $100 fee. I'm really not sure how I feel about the $1 per foot. I think it should be something we should ease into. But I definitely, we shouldn't be losing money on this like we are now.
And maybe it's, so what I'm gathering, maybe it makes more sense that we just look at doing 100 and then continually raising that fee per occurrence. 100 the first time, whatever, 150, whatever number that is, 200, keep bumping that, whatever. If you want to make it a $25 increment, a $50 increment, whatever that number is. Maybe that seems to be what I'm kind of gathering here.
I like having an income. The habitual effect, regardless of what it is or how it.
Yeah, so I think that we should do both. Like, I think we really need to keep in mind that this is not a service provided by the city. This is something that the individual property owner should be taking care of. The city needs to charge a minimum of our cost. And when they are not taking care of it, they need to have some sort of repercussion. So I think both having it get incrementally higher as well as charging per square foot is more than justified. It's a problem, it's a safety issue, and I'll be 100% honest. When I first moved here, when I first purchased my home, I purchased it in late winter, early spring, and I didn't move here until about 4 or 5 months later. And there was one time when I didn't get my property and the city removed it, and I think it was like $55 or something, or it was.
I think it's like 50 right now.
Maybe 50. But when I got that bill, like, there was a thought in the back of my head, maybe I should let the city clear my sidewalk, and that should not be a thought, because that's
right.
That shouldn't even be a thought process in our residents' mind. So it should be high enough to recoup costs, and it should be high enough to be slightly punitive, honestly, because that's what this is meant to be. This should be punitive. It is a fine.
I think something that's often overlooked is in sidewalks, whether we're talking snow, grass, sidewalks in general, is we have to remember they always have to be accessible for ADA. And that's really where I think the overlook is, and people say, well, why can't somebody walk through an inch of snow on my property, or an inch it's a little icy? What about that person on a walker and a cane and in a wheelchair? That's where we've got to really talk about the residents as a whole.
I'm for the $100 definitely, and then I think definitely at least the $1 square foot, because truthfully, I think I agree with the mayor on this. There are some properties that, I mean, your cost is going to fluctuate a lot, and if you have a huge corner lot, $100 is still a great deal. So, like to Ian's point, I think that you don't want somebody considering, oh, well, that wasn't so bad, I'll just neglect it again next time, or so.
Just to clarify, it would be linear foot, not square foot.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
And I would agree that, the hope would be that DPW never receives a phone call regarding someone not shoveling their sidewalk, and DPW doesn't have to spend our valuable time doing that work.
Oh, I mean, I definitely agree that we need to cover our costs. I'm just not looking to make things too punitive in general. I just don't want to punish the people that are working multiple jobs, that are having health problems, that are on a trip and didn't quite have their person show up. Yeah, I'm really just trying to keep it as low as possible while still covering the cost, but having a bit of an increment if it is a little habitual problem. And then if it's $100, I would want that to include the shoveling. There might be a maximum square footage. I don't know if it'll be 30 feet. I don't know if it'll be 40 or 50. Whatever a typical lot size, I would want to be included. And then probably $1 per foot over the average length.
What is the, are you aware of a,
I am not aware of the typical lot size here in Columbus. In my previous community, which is much more suburban, was over a ish. But I believe that it'd be a larger lot size.
I think there's probably different typicals in different neighborhoods, and I think that's what we're trying to get at. I think that if we're going to raise the fee, what we should do is have the fee set for a smaller front downtown, or probably older residential neighborhoods that are stuffed together, that are, and I guess 50, something like that, and then over that, that's what the additional charge does. Have a large lot, besides that $100 is a great deal, that it's a bit more competitive there, at least starting off. But I'd leave it up to you to maybe make that recommendation on what anything under this fee is this much. This is what the cost is, and then we start tacking on per linear foot after that. Then I think also an incremental administrative charge to go on the repeat offenders, to kind of hear that as well as a way. What we're trying to do is go after the habitual offenders, not the people that take everyone.
So you would be in favor of both, essentially?
I think having the linear foot takes care of the larger lots, the larger offenders, and then also an administrative fee for second, third offense. On definitely help those habitual. Kind of a balance of everything I'm hearing here anyway. It's just they have that base cost for the first offender and then have it escalate.
Ed?
I'm sensitive to Alderman Person Reed's concerns, but on social media, I see all sorts of people saying, look, if you just need help, reach out and we'd be happy to help you and shovel. So I understand there's people of limited abilities and means, et cetera, but I also sense Columbus is a community that would help those that are truly in need. And I had already written down something along the lines of what the mayor was talking about. I suggest, unless we want to, I don't know how far we want to go with setting things tonight, but a proposal I would make would be $100 on the first violation, $150 on the second, $200 on the third, and the first either 45 or 60 feet, as opposed to 30, be $1 a foot, and $2 for above that, either 45 or 60. I want to set it. In my mind, I think that disincentivizes behavior, and that we have to.
Katie?
I was gonna suggest a 5.
I was thinking 25 also.
So $100 initial fee, first time, second, 2,500 plus $1 square foot. Third fee. That
We're just gonna keep going at 25 each time, and snows more than 3 times. Then what? We just keep going, or is there
Keep going. Whatever council prefers.
I don't.
What do you have?
see-
Someone that
I
does
don't
10.
see room for a cap on that. At that point, I would really hope that person or individual would look out, hire a snow removal service at a lesser.
I guess I would lean towards like a $200 cap.
I mean, I don't know if there really needs to be a cap. There will be, like what Alderperson Reed brought up before, there will be some circumstances where there might be someone that needs help. But that's something that the city DPW, we would be lenient. That we're not going to punish people who aren't capable. We'll figure out. We are a good, their neighbors, even, I personally would help, try and find them assistance. It's not, I don't think that's as big of a worry as we need to be. So I don't think a cap is really necessary. And I do agree with Ed. I think we should have both the linear square feet after whatever number it is that we deem and the incremental. And as far as waiving the 24-hour notice, maybe we do something that's more incremental with that as well. Maybe the first violation is 24 hours and then 12 hours and then just getting rid of it entirely after that. Like maybe give them something more incremental so that it does only affect the more habitual people. Because in between there, if it's someone that does have a viable need for assistance, we'll know by that point instead of just getting it right away.
I guess off of that, I would just say off past experience, a 12-hour notice wouldn't really be very effective because you're talking about if they call at noon, well, now it's up at midnight, 7, and then that just because it's up at midnight and we're back in at work at 7 doesn't mean we're going to get to that sidewalk at 7 or 7:30. We might not get there till noon anyways. That might just be kind of, in that, I guess I would look more towards a 2 or 3 strike option.
All right, Zach. So first of all, I agree with Ed and Ian on their approach. I like it. I think that would be the right way to go. I don't know about the 24 versus 12. Seems like there'd be some logistical problems there. I did have 2 questions. So right now it's complaint based only.
Correct.
As the whispers out there as DPW drives around. Look,
There has been direction in the past for staff to do that. That will not be the case under my.
Okay. That is good to know. And so if this is, would this be an ordinance violation?
Correct.
So why wouldn't they call the police instead of DPW? That would be the normal enforcing agency of.
Sidewalks are enforced by through DPW through this
DPW.
process. I mean, it's again with we can look at ordinances till we're blue in the face and the way we might want to fix them.
Okay.
And this is, every community that I've dealt with, it's
Strictly
DPW.
And then, do you, I honestly didn't know I would call DPW. And I've been up here for almost 4 years. So is there any way to get the word out? Is it the right way to communicate if you see a problem?
Yep, it's that can definitely go on social media and the website and all that. I'm actually working on putting kind of an encompassing winter page together for the website just to kind of hopefully hit all topics winter, and so if someone's got somewhere to go for all their answers, and that'll be promoted as soon as it's ready as well.
Right. And you go down to the wastewater treatment plant and wait for it to be at 2 inches of snow?
I sit there with my coffee and wait.
Thought so. Okay, thanks for the feedback. I appreciate it.
You bet.
Trina, go ahead.
And then would the notices also go into the mail with the billings? For when people get their water bills, would you be able to get that put into that?
We can.
I know it's not your department, but
yeah, we do work
just
with them.
for-
That they do have a pretty, from my understanding, they've got it's a pretty hot list to get into that mailing. But it's something that we can definitely work on, but just remember there is a fair cost associated with that as well.
Understood, but for something with this kind of fee increase,
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
would definitely want to have it in paper.
Yep.
Like
And we definitely
at
work with
people's
our friends over
houses,
at the newspaper.
At the
and-
newspaper, of course, but I would want this to actually arrive at people's homes,
Mhm.
so they don't have to be looking on the media.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people don't.
Right.
And they wouldn't be expecting it otherwise.
Well, and if this is something that we get taken care of, I think we could talk about the tax bill as well coming up.
Mike.
I think that if you want to get a paper notice out, I know that there's a very long waiting list to get in utility bills, or if they want to put a second page in, it costs more to do that. I think I'm trying to say. So if your wish is to get it in the utility bill this year, I don't have a whole lot of hope, but I think getting it into the tax bills might be a possibility.
Ed?
How many other communities did you consult?
Did I consult or did I get answers from? I'd have to look back at my emails, but I would say
it was a bunch.
Yeah, I mean at least 15.
All right. And then my other question is, does Attorney Johnson have any opinions on this? Are we going down a path that raises any concerns from an attorney legal standpoint?
Not yet.
Mike, I don't know if I read this, but once we move this forward with those if we move this forward and it's approved on December 2nd, doesn't it immediately go into effect, or do we set a date? Or either one?
Either one. If you're gonna make it effective, well, it depends on, what you're talking about right now is basically a policy, right? You're not talking about amending your ordinance or changing your ordinance yet, although that'll probably come as soon as you make your final decision on what you want to do, then we'll go back and make sure the ordinance matches up with the policy, and then that will have a different effective date, but you can implement the policy as soon as you actually approve something, whatever it is that Zach's gonna come back with at your next.
Okay. Any other discussion on this? Mike?
I think if there's concerns about implementing this, we've already started snow shoveling as well. Maybe there's a way to bring back some recommendations from Zach to kind of refine what you heard tonight. Say, are you okay with this? Whether we do that at the committee of the whole, even if it was brought to the next regular meeting, we could do the first reading of an ordinance. We wouldn't need to adopt it. We can take it a little bit of time because I do think we want the public to be aware that this is going to be enforced this year, and to have everybody understand that within a couple weeks is asking for a lot. So I think just having some baby steps and getting those in place is good, but doing it halfway or partially into the snow shoveling season, you're going to hear some complaints about that. They want to be notified. So I just want to point that out.
Yeah. That's kind of where I was going with that.
So we don't need to hot rod this into the regular meeting. I think we're
All right.
trying to support what you're trying to accomplish here, but let's make sure we take the time that we need to notify the public.
Yeah.
So I'd be in favor of bringing back a more revised version of this for the next committee of the whole, see where it is, if that sounds good.
I'm great with that. Go ahead.
I would like to see us aim for a January 1st effective date. I think that date just makes sense.
When do the tax bills go out?
Okay.
I will look
That's
at a
about it.
cost to do an individual mailer, if that's something you want to look at.
Sure. All right. So, go ahead. Are you good? Okay. Unless there's anything else on this item, we will see that again at the next committee of the whole and continue discussion. I think we're on a good path, though. All right. Next up, I have review of the DPW fixed assets disposals for 2019. Zach, still up there. Looks like you have some items you'd like to get rid of.
Yes, sir.
All right.
As you'll see here, it's attached. All the items. These are all pretty, rough guesses that I worked with my staff to say, okay, what do you think this equipment is worth at this point, or what do you think we can get for it? Let's set a minimum so when it goes to auction, this is what we want to at least see for it, and hope for more.
Right.
So some of this is outdated. Some of this is stuff that just isn't used anymore. You'll see like the 7-ton trailer. From what I've been told by staff, that's just been sitting in the yard for years. We used to have some paving equipment that trailer was used for to haul the equipment. We have not had that equipment in a long time. The trailer has not been used for a good purpose at the time. We do have hopes and dreams for more trailers that'll benefit us for lawn care and different things like that. But for now, we don't.
I do appreciate the list in here. It's very helpful. In the past, the items we've gotten come in a 1-inch thick picture format. So
I did provide pictures, and I let the clerk decide if she wanted to put them in or not.
all right. Well, good job to the clerk. All right. Yeah, I'm good with this. Okay, moving that forward, council. All right, we'll move that forward. Thanks, Zach.
Thank you.
All right, next up, I have number 9, discuss and consider potential 2020 mill and overlay project. This is a continued discussion. We've talked about this a few times. Jason Letha is here. If you have questions, basically at this point, I think in order for, kind of the chicken and the egg here, in order for Jason to do give us a list of streets. He needs to know how much we are going to spend on mill and overlay. Is that about right, Jason?
Yeah, thanks, Andy. I believe, I know I had sent this over to the past administrator before he had left. It was early October. There was a list of mill and overlay candidates. I'm not quite sure if it made it all the way home to you guys or in the packet. I thought it was at one of the previous cows. Essentially, it was a list of mill and overlay candidates that we had looked at with some of the criteria that we had previously discussed. So roads that had relatively good curb and gutter, roads that had reasonably good utilities that we felt would outlast the life of an overlay pavement. We also then looked at things like, was there observable base conditions that were poor where we knew if we put an overlay down it would fail. And so we came up with that list, and I'm just going to kind of, if I know many of you probably don't have that tonight, but I'll just kind of read off the names of what I had deemed good candidates, and then there was some other additional okay or pool candidates. All of these roads would have been rated somewhere between a PACER rating, probably 3 to 6, depending on the condition of the road. The one that we had talked about was Folsom Street. So we had talked about, could we overlay that? And after some review, and there was some discussion, that I felt that that would be a candidate to overlay. I don't think that's the best solution, but I also think it is a solution that gets us down the road with Folsom Street. Curbs are in good shape. There are some positives out there, but it's just very poor pavement. Maybe with some minor, EBS or undercut, we may be able to firm up that road and overlay it. So that's about 780 feet of roadway. Avalon Road between Wildwood Drive and Brookside Lane. So those of you who are familiar with driving down Avalon, there's kind of a section in the middle that's not that great. So the idea there would be to mill and overlay that and improve that section. That's about 675 feet. Middleton Street, that would be between North Ludington and Dixon Boulevard. So on the other side of the bridge, there's a section of Middleton Street. Part of the section further away from 73 is in better shape. Part of the Middleton Street off of 73 is in good shape, but there's a section right in the middle that's a couple hundred feet that, could use a uplift, and I think that would make that whole stretch in relatively good rating condition again. Waterloo Street, so we just did a bunch of that down there, but there's still 2 sections that are, now that they look good before we mill and overlaid the bad sections, and now that the bad sections are done, now these sections are the worst sections. So the thought would be that if we could improve those 2 areas, I would be confident that Waterloo Street would be in good shape for the foreseeable future, complete through, not have just kind of this patchwork section. Total length on that is probably 700 feet. There's a 450-foot stretch and about a 250-foot stretch. East Harrison, so that would be by the police building between Water Street and Ludington. West Prairie and West School, both of these are 1-block sections over from Charles to Hibbert. So if we're doing the Hibbert Street project, those of you who are up there are very familiar with narrow streets, rural sections. We have fixed Selden, we've fixed, I believe, Prairie up there. Again, no utilities under there. They're narrow. They're relatively inexpensive. The thought would be, if we're doing Hibbert, maybe we can do those as well. That way we have some of those side streets that are really, really poor shape fixed up. I do have one piece of South Charles from James Street to Narrow Street. So there's a block there that's in pretty poor shape. Curb and gutter's pretty good. I think that would be an overlay candidate. We could improve that. And then Fuller Street. There is a section of Fuller Street from Dix to the end, so heading up towards the church, if you will. That also is a good overlay candidate, meeting those criteria. Those are the good candidates I had listed. Looking at that and just doing a rough estimate, I get about $225,000 to do that work. I know the packet was kind of talking somewhere around that $200,000. I know previously, I think back in October, we were talking in the $300,000. So I think there's a range you're considering. I just kind of wanted to let you know that if we focused on those, which I identified, I think is our good candidates for mill and overlays, that's kind of the threshold we get. So that kind of gives you a little idea on the funding. We can certainly pull 1 or 2 of those out or move some streets around. we go back and revisit the okay list, there might be something down there that somebody feels strongly about. We could always insert that or replace something in what I deem the good candidate list. So, but I want to just kind of bring that back and have this discussion again to start thinking about it. Going back to our initial conversation, the one thing that I'd like to do as the engineer is, if possible, incorporate this into the bidding for the roadway reconstruction. I really strongly believe we will get much better pricing because of volume. The larger the asphalt, the cheaper it gets. So in this particular case, adding this additional asphalt will both help the Hibbert Street costs, will also help our mill and overlay costs. As far as timing, we can still incorporate it. The specifications and everything that we would prepare for the mill and overlay project are very similar to the ones we already have to do for Hibbert. So again, combining it saves time and effort on the preparation end on our side as well. So I think there's some positives. So again, if we're kind of looking forward, the bid schedule for the street reconstruction, we're hoping to have in maybe late January, early February. In order to incorporate the mill and overlay, I would say that it'd be nice to have for sure a decision by, say, the end of the year, with a firm, number for budgeting, and then obviously we can develop the bid to reflect candidates plus some alternates, and that way we have some flexibility when prices come in. We can either take a base bid and add some alternates in to make sure that we're maximizing, the note that you want to borrow. That way we kind of get the most bang for our buck out of the streets. So those are my thoughts. Again, open for discussion. I'll answer any questions if I can now. If you haven't seen the list lately, I can certainly resend it or make sure staff has it, that we can get it back all out to you again, and we can have more discussions on it going forward.
Thanks, Jason. I do remember seeing that list, and I couldn't, in my, miles of paperwork at home, I could not find that particular page. But I do remember you sending it, and we've seen it before. So just listening to your timing, it sounds like you probably need a decision if you want it by the end of the year, by our 12/17 regular meeting.
That would be nice.
That's our last meeting, and
yeah, it's a loose kind of deadline, but we do need a little time to prepare the drawings and incorporate quantities into the bid package and separate out the base bids for moving forward with the regular recon.
Okay. Katie?
Just had a question. I don't know if you recall, I know that we had some discussion about Richmond Street, Fountain Street.
Yes.
And were those, if you recall, if those were on the mill and overlay candidate list?
I did not have them on there, and why I did not add those to the list was the curbs are in such poor repair that we really can't. The flags are cracked, or there's big pieces of curbs missing where the water just can't flow in the gutter properly. And so we've felt historically, when we've looked at those sections, that they just don't meet really mill and overlay criteria, because in order to improve the drainage, we really need to fix the curbs, and we have something to pave up against. So that was kind of the reason why we don't see those two on these lists, because I would deem them reconstruction candidates.
Is the curb something that is beyond repair?
Yes.
At that time.
When the past DPW was here, we had talked about, can we go in and start repairing it? And what happens is, when you repair pieces, there's a much higher cost because there's more labor to cut out a section and repair it. If you remove all of the curb and then just redo it, it's much cheaper. It's almost on a factor of half the cost if you remove all the curb, but then you're doing twice as much curb if you're removing all of it. And then once you remove the curb, you kind of get into, sub-base and completely reconstructing the street, and it kind of gets a diminishing point of return, in my opinion, to where you can kind of draw the line and say, how much can we do, and call it an overlay.
Sure. My only concern is those particular streets, usually it's really only like a one block section that is really bad.
Which street?
In Richmond and Fountain. They're
Yeah,
sort of parallel
yeah.
to each other, but it's really only one block that that they left out. So it's kind of
and that's the exact reason why you saw that option for reconstruction. We talked about all those one block sections, because we do have a lot of those, and it sure would be nice to clean them up. But I just don't feel mill and overlay is what I would recommend.
Sure. Thank you.
Thanks, Katie. Mike, go ahead.
I think that, well, we're obviously going to need to have another meeting to discuss borrowing in general. I don't know, we don't have anything planned right now, but I think we can do something in December definitely. But I'm wondering what your flexibility is on going into the bid process with your base bid for Hibbard and the alternate bids. Can you have like two separate alternates? Like if we just need to pick a dollar amount, I'm not so concerned about individual streets, you know, your recommendation to say these are good candidates. I just want to know that if we're borrowing money for 10 years for a mill and overlay, that we're going to get a mill and overlay that will hopefully last 10 years. That's really my only concern. But by having it as an alternate bid, ultimately, if the bids come in way higher than we thought, and it's out of budget, that allows us to basically not do the mill and overlays if
Yeah, correct. So the one thing that we can do as much proposing an alternate bid combinations we want project bid. I will tell you, I've driven contractors absolutely crazy doing that. But you know what? They complain, but they always turn in a bid too. So, so what I would suggest is the way I would recommend setting this up is we would have a base bid for Hibbert Street reconstruction, and that would be that project. We would also then have a base bid for the mill and overlay, which would be a required bid. We'd have a contractor mandatory put in. We would set whatever amount we felt you were okay with borrowing. So let's just say it's just to say it's 200 for argument's sake right now. I would pick $150,000 worth of estimated streets and make that the base bid. And then I would add some alternates that were mandatory. They have to provide a cost for each one of those sections. So if we came in where we thought at 150, perfect. And then we can add alternates till we get up to the 200. So I would always create a second base bid for the mill and overlay that would be less than we would anticipate our borrowing, and where we think the prices would come in where we would be below that, and then add the alternates to increasingly increase the cost to get up to the borrowing limit. And then that gives us the most flexibility to say, you can accept the base bid for the mill and overlays and get, say, you can get 5 or 6 of those street sections, and then you can add 7 or 8 or 9, you know, if prices are favorable. And so that way, again, you have the flexibility to not just, so what I'm trying to do there by doing that is what we're trying to do is we're trying to prevent putting them all in the bid and then having the prices come in too high and say, well, we have to reject them and now we can't do any of them. So that gives us the flexibility to work up and fit the amount in.
like that gives us some flexibility.
Yeah.
I think we just need to get a meeting together in December to talk about borrowing. I know that there's a few unknowns that are still lingering out there. The aquatic center, we were hoping we would kind of know where we are with that, and we don't. And then also the stormwater issues, culverts in Environments Park, et cetera, if that's something back next year and need to borrow for. So I think there's just all the unknowns. We're going to need to make a decision on what level of borrowing we're comfortable. Try to get a meeting together.
I agree with Mike on that, and I like your approach on the bidding. You're looking at maybe getting up to 10 streets, either reconstructed or mill and overlaid in 2020, and that's a huge accomplishment. So anything we can do to improve our streets, sidewalks would be great.
I will note that the total length of all those streets are 4,500 feet, so just a little short of a mile pavement. Had that been that budget.
Neat. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I think we can work together and get a meeting date set up to talk about the borrowing, which we need to do anyway. So, and ultimately, our goal would be to get you something that you can work with by the 17th would be preferable. Any other questions for Jason on this item? Okay, go ahead.
I just wanted to say, if we're worried about meeting dates, I don't think we really approve anything by December 7th other than have consensus. Is that correct, Paul? We're not borrowing the money until we bond. We want to give him some direction. So even if it's the committee of the whole on the 17th, we can still get him what he hopes. But we don't need to take official action at a regular meeting.
I know that we had to do the resolution previously when we were Hibbard. So.
We can do whatever it takes, but I don't think there's a need for official action if that's what we're worried about as far as getting it through the amount of
Okay.
meetings that we have.
All right.
Yep.
Thanks, Mike. Any other comments? All right. Let's see. Next up, I have continued discussion of the Wisconsin Department of Transportation LRIP and MLS grant. Jason is still up there for you.
Yeah, so this is more of an update tonight. I just kind of wanted to bring this back to the group and kind of let you know where we're at and kind of the direction and information going. So there was an email in your packet that I had sent over that had some more in-depth information in. So with the LRIP grants, they are gone. They're submitted. They are in. Hopefully we're successful. There's 2 grants there. One's a discretionary fund grant. We're asking for 50% of the eligible roadway costs, about $540,000. We're kind of shooting for the moon here a little bit, but you never know. So I think we with the help of staff and Zach, we think we put together a fairly strong application, and we'll see kind of how it pans out. So that has been submitted, and we should know in March. So as kind of we're moving forward and finalizing and getting bids in, we'll have a little better idea if we're successful. The entitlement fund for the LRIP grants, that is the one that we historically have applied for. It's much smaller, probably somewhere around $15,000. We are also expecting to be successful on that with a little luck, and so we are expecting that to be awarded as well. We can win both, but we can only accept one. So I think that's the obvious choice if we win both. So just kind of stay tuned as the process kind of vets itself out. We should be learning more information and hearing back to see what we've accomplished. Any questions on the LRIP grants before I move on? Both of those were Hibbert Street, applied to Hibbert Street. All right, MLS grants.
One second.
And
Go ahead.
just one question. You expect to hear back from both of them at the same time since we can only accept one or the other? Okay.
Yeah, I would. I mean, they're both LRIP grants. They're both through the same program. They're just a little different allocation, so.
Okay, go ahead.
Sorry. MLS grants. So this is the one-time transportation grant that's out there currently that the state will be administering. We've talked about 2 projects that we would apply grants for the city on. One would be North Dickinson, and the other would be the bike trail. Both these grants are due, I believe it's September 6th. We're currently working on pulling together the information, but again, we summarized a little bit of it here. The North Dickinson project would be about $856,000. The grant covers up to 90% of the project, which equates to about $596,000. It is possible again that we may request a smaller funding rate, and that will be a question I guess I will ask of you guys as we move forward and get this grant close to finalizing. Do we want to ask for this funding rate at 90%, or are you looking for some contribution potentially less than that? Keep in mind, asking for less helps your odds of winning. They've kind of stated that in the selection process, so if you ask for 50%, you may score a little higher and therefore be awarded some money. If you ask for 90, you may score lower and get nothing. So this program's new. We don't know how the funds are going to be allocated. We know there's a committee, but it's not something that we have a lot of history or experience with. So at this point, a lot of people are trying to guess: are we going in at 90%? Are we asking for less? Is some better than none? And so we'll have to at some point kind of come up with a little bit of an idea how you guys feel about funding levels. So that would obviously, this due September 6th, we'll know in February. So that one's a little sooner, that's announced. And with that, I believe we have 6 years to complete the project. So again, it's not something that is awarded and we have to act on immediately next year from your funding perspective, but at least then you have the funds allocated and awarded. You'll have to sign a state municipal agreement. And, that certainly could be, 1, 2, 3 years out, to get design started and like that. But, any questions on Dickinson grant?
Yeah, my only question you answered was about how long we had to use it. As far as the percent that, we'd want to ask for, I think that's a question that Jason would probably want to know now or soon. Go ahead, Mike.
After I heard you say that we have 6 years, that made me a little bit more comfortable. 'Cause obviously, if we had to do the project next year, we hadn't anticipated borrowing or for it. I think even 50% on a project, like, if you get it. So I'd like to be more competitive. I don't have an exact number in my head, but I'm definitely willing to take it down and qualify for some of these projects. If we got the funding there from them, we can plan out and have those projects next couple of years.
The 50% stuck in my head too, once he had mentioned that we could be a little more competitive, have a better chance of winning it. And again, 6 years to figure out how we're gonna pay for it. I mean, there's no question that road needs to be fixed, whether it's gonna be through this grant or one of our next road projects. So, yeah. So who's next? Trina?
Oh goodness, I guess I'm getting greedy. I hate to go all the way down to 50%. I'd rather ask for maybe 75%. I don't know. Such a big difference.
Jason, for the bike trail, did you
Yes.
suggest going down on that one as well to improve eligibility?
Yes, I've had this conversations with several communities about where they think the funding level should be if they are willing to do 90% or less, and ironically, everybody picks 50%. I don't know why, if that's just the mentality of let's just take half, and a lot of grants already, that are out there are kind of a 50% match. So I think people are used to that, so I think people gravitate back to that number. So I hear that number a lot. Again, I think the likelihood of scoring a little higher would be asking for a little less. I think the methodology that I'm telling people is if these are out 6 years, and you do have the ability to borrow for them down the road, getting a grant would be nice to have. Now, I certainly agree with Trina, the more the better, but I also realize there's only, I can't remember the number, 17 or 20 million in the municipal fund for this. And there's probably, 800 communities in the state that are all applying for $1 million projects with a 50% match. So, again, I'm not sure we're going to get one of these, but, I also want to make sure that we have a good application and that we're asking for something of value, which, I think, on a $500,000 project, if you get $250,000, I think that's a pretty good value. So
I'm for 50%. I think I'd be okay with that. As long as we have 6 years to use it and we can plan for it. I'd rather get something than nothing.
So how long did you say this specific grant was out there for? Like, how long has this been in existence?
a couple months.
Only a couple months, so we have
Yeah.
absolutely no idea.
No
There's
idea.
no history of any sort of percentage of what would make sense. So that's difficult. We of course want as much as possible. If everyone's asking for 50%, if that's kind of the go-to because that's what municipalities are accustomed for, I would argue against asking for 50% because that would just be the exact same that everyone else is asking for, and that's illogical and gives us absolutely no foot up. So I don't know if it's the right answer. I would, since it is so new, I think we should, is this something that's going to exist for multiple years to come? Do we know?
My
Have any
understanding
idea?
is this is a one-time shot.
A one-time shot.
Yeah.
So that makes it even more difficult. So what I would think is, but we're going to submit both of these projects, correct?
That's what we would like to do for the city, yes.
So my personal recommendation would be to ask for a higher percentage on one and a lower percentage on the other, but not 50% on either would be my recommendation.
Completely agree with Alder Gray. I like the logic, and I was sitting here thinking 40%. You have 6 years to come up with the remaining money. Let's do something that makes us stand out. This is a one-time grant that the legislature passed this year, the first time. We don't know if it's going to exist again. There's only, I forget the number that you said, 10 million. I think 30 or 40%. Let's increase our odds of winning.
Oh, goodness. I mean, I guess for myself, hearing that 50% is probably the industry standard, would lean towards the industry standard and hope that the project itself sounds, like a fairly interesting one. Location sounds interesting. That sounds useful for their goals. For the bike trail, wow, I had no idea it was going to cost so much. I really thought it was going to be more like half of the amounts. I guess for the bike trail, I might ask for 75% and just leave that one as a high number.
Thanks. Go ahead.
Kind of now echoing kind of what Trina is saying with the Dickinson Street. I do think that project is something that really fits what most grants want to provide. It's downtown, it's, pedestrian safety, all of these different things. So I do think that that one has a good fighting. I guess I would be willing to put that one over the bike trails, although pedestrian safety kind of ties in there as well. I'd much rather get the help with the street. So I don't know if we should go 70-30, 80-20. For Dickinson Street would be higher, so maybe 70%. What are you thinking, Ed?
Well, I tell you, I think he's thinking the opposite, but
Yeah, because I want to increase our odds of winning. I would like to go with a smaller number on Dickinson, and I also hope that when we submit the application, we submit it as Dickinson Street instead of Dickinson.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Go to that, Ed.
I was gonna say something. I was starting. Yeah, there's no Dickinson Street in Columbus. Denied. Yeah. If we're talking about a $850,000 project, if I knew I could get $300,000 to that project, oh my God, let's do this. If I knew I could get $250,000, I'd do it. It's better than $0. And if that gives us a better chance to win a bid, I'll do it. I would rely on our city engineer to give me what he thinks what our best chance is with what percentage, and even with the bike trail, I mean, even you ask for 75% or 60% or whatever you want, but I think and whatever this committee is going to do, they're gonna. We have no idea, so they may think bike trails, are the way to go, and they'll fund it. I mean, this is legislatures or this committee is probably based out of Madison. They're pro bike. Yeah.
And so, I mean, my biggest thing is it's an unknown. It's a one-time shot. So, like, if we're looking at Dickinson project, 50% would be approximately like 335. 45% would be about 300. If we have a higher chance of getting $300,000 as opposed to $350,000, let's go for $300,000. Like, let's shore up our chances of getting something. I really think, since this doesn't have much precedent, and since most municipalities kind of have that 50% mark in their head, that is going to be what most are going to ask for. Now, this is also going to be something that they're going to want to complete as many projects as possible. The number of projects is going to look better to them than an individual project that's super deserved. Yeah. They will care about multiple projects. So the increasing our likelihood, asking for less money, and getting something, I really do believe.
For both. Sound logic.
Like, we don't necessarily have to drop to 25 or 30%. There is a really good chance that the majority of people are going to be asking for 50% or maybe even a little more, since they might think they might be able to get more, since it's not just cut off at 50. like 5% might be enough below 50% to get a win. Like, I don't know. It just makes sense to me.
Mike? Do you have any idea or indication as to how they're going to be reviewing the criteria of the application? I mean, is every application going to be considered equally? I mean, this is the first time, but I think that they're specifically looking for certain types of projects. I mean, and you're writing the grant, so you're trying to write the narrative they want to see.
Right. So my understanding is they have a committee of, I think, 12 people on the selection. They're from around the state. They're kind of a cross-section of different types and regions and locations, much like the LRIP does with the county. So they're kind of formatting it under that selection criteria. They have said straight up that that projects will be awarded based on economic impact, safety, regional connectivity, and there's a couple other pieces that go in there, but are lower percentage as you work down. But the big ones are safety and economic development, impact, and then regional connectivity. I think we can build a case in each one of these for those things. And so we don't know how they're going to select it, but we know that there is this $17 million sitting out there, and that transit projects, harbor projects, potentially, rail projects, roadway projects, trail projects, all qualify under the 17 million. So they have a diverse category. My guess would be that they will try and probably fund each one of those sections. They will find a harbor project and a pedestrian project, and so that's why I think you guys have a good idea about submitting a trail project and submitting a street project, because I think they're going to be looking at projects to fill. If, in my opinion, if every community goes in and says, well, we all got a street project, let's submit it, and somebody comes along with a unique trail project or a unique pedestrian project, they're probably going to look at it and go, well, we should fund that, because that does meet one of the criteria we said we would fund, and there's very few of those projects. I also think that if you fund both of them, say at, and again, based on your conversation, pick 40%. If you fund them both at 40%, 40% of the 856 and 40% of 536 is going to give you two varying amounts. So if they're going to look at Columbus and say, we're going to award one, they may pick the lower one, or they may pick the higher one, but at least then you give them an option. You're not giving them two projects with the exact same amount, and now they got to struggle between which project is more relevant. They may be just looking at plugging dollars, and I don't know what this committee is going to do. But if they got 17 million, they may start with 17 million and start subtracting every project they select and see what the balance is until they run out of project. I don't know. So again, it's very hard to know what this group of people will do. They don't have a precedent either, because it's not like these people have been selecting criteria projects. They're people that they've randomly picked that have agreed to be on the selection committee. So right now, everybody's having the same conversation about what to do, and that's why it's important to make sure that I think we represent Columbus and get the right number in there. But I feel like both of these are solid projects, so that's the best we know at this point. So if we're struggling between 45 and 40%, that may not at the end of the day make a lot of difference, but it may make a difference, not to you, but if stand out amongst everybody else, it may make a difference. So I kind of like your logic that you've been discussing here, because it is a little unique. But not knowing how this group is really going to rate these projects, I think it's more important as to having a unique project and having a project, that has a manageable dollar amount. So like you said, they can spread the wealth around a little bit. If they say, well, we took $70 million and we awarded, 8 projects, or they said we awarded 42 projects, that's going to look a lot different in the press. So.
On the bike trail, I drive kind of crazy here, but I'm trying to drive the price up a little bit on this. I think the one thing I don't see mentioned in here is, obviously there's a lot of conversation happening about the Hibbard Street project, sidewalks, connectivity, etc. But I believe the city owns a parcel of land between Dix and Warner Street Park. Interpac looking at another donation again next year. Warner Street doesn't have sidewalk at this point, and I see that as something that could add a lot of credibility to the bike trail grant by connecting Dick Street to Warner Street with the bike trail. We have a parcel of land in there. I don't know, maybe you've looked at that already, maybe you haven't, maybe it's too late to throw that in there, but I think that is connecting a new park city to the infrastructure to get there. People that live in the neighborhood that don't like, they're walking on the street to get to a local park, but I that above that, our chance by adding a new bike.
We can certainly add it in. I've had the discussion and I've been made aware of it, but it's not included yet, but it certainly can still be yes.
I actually love the idea of adding that in.
Off Mayor Tom's point, I kind of live right near that neighborhood, but I almost think it would make more sense to come up from like behind, like where Zion is, because there are sidewalks from Dick down Fuller Street towards the Lutheran Church there. There's not on Warner Street itself, but if you came up the backside, I don't know if the city has any extra land. I don't know if that's heard that, I don't know. But behind, sort of coming up on the backside of the Warner Park, so towards the cornfield area, and I don't know if where it's supposed to or if that's visible. But it just would seem to make more sense to me rather than coming from Dick's where there's already a sidewalk on both directions and then putting the bike path down Warner Street, which isn't, I don't know, wide bike path right there would really make sense. But if back, you'd have
You know
maybe.
where the parcel is that I'm about or not? It's aligned directly with Hibbard Street. Right.
Oh, so it goes diagonally through.
Towards
Oh,
Warner
no, I did
Park.
not understand that part.
Yep.
Okay.
There's an existing right-of-way that exists that the city owns. I think it's a wide strip of land there that's just not developed. It's just grass. It looks like lawn or yard at this point, but it is old right-of-way that, you know, we could insert a trail that connects Hibbert or Dick's to Warner.
Very interesting.
Well, I mean, again, I was saying, if you told me I was going to get $250,000 towards that street out there, I would do that over. I would want to win. I would want a better chance to win that than I would want a better chance bike trail. Although I wish. If you ask for 30% of the Dickinson project, that's $256,000. If you ask for 50% on the bike trail, $260,000. That might now your number's lower, and there's two projects to choose from. Although that does increase our cost on Dickinson at some point in the next 6 months. I don't know. Tough one. Trina, go ahead.
I guess at this point, I'm leaning towards asking for 40% on Dickinson and 60% on the bike trail. Yay, 100% off. Wonderful.
Just real same down 40% on Dick, 60% on the trail. I think the bike trails looked at differently than we're a smaller community. There's a lot of communities our size that maybe don't have bike trails. So I think that would be more attractive to Dick than 40% attractive and to get us some.
Okay. Ian?
That was honestly my thought. Like when I first said we should go one high, one low, that was the breakup that I was thinking. So I 40 and 60 those were the exact. That's awesome.
All right, Ed, any thoughts?
I think going 60 is a ticket to nowhere, so I would support 40 and 50 if we're gonna.
Yeah, I'm looking at, in the back of my mind, I keep replaying what Jason said. You have two projects on the board for Columbus. They may just pick the lower one. So what's the lower project going to be? The lower project's going to be bike trail.
depends on the criteria. I think if they're looking at getting more projects done, they're only giving us 40% on Dickinson. We're spending more money than they are. That's still a shared success, I guess. That's the way I'm looking. The bike trail, we ask 60, maybe we're pushing them in the direction of the other project. 40 depends on the criteria that they're using, just
Which we don't
the
know.
thought process of the committee. So I think we just need to pick some numbers and hope one of them sticks.
All right, 60-40, I guess. I mean, we don't know. We just. I mean, Ian, go ahead.
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, things like this, it's most likely going to end up being a numbers game for them. How many projects can they complete? So I don't know if they're going to care about the specific percentage on an individual project. They're going to more care about, does it tick a box that they need to tick, and is it in the budget? So the less we ask for, like, we should probably, what's the magic number we should ask for, not percentage. More of what we should care about. Like, is it $250,000? Should we keep it at, just figure out a percentage so that they're both at about $250,000? I don't think we should, the percentage isn't as important as money, and I do think that we should submit them both so that they're similar amount of money, so they have a equal standing monetarily speaking, and just hope that one of the two projects ticks the right box and we get one of them.
I largely agree, but I'm going to take one last shot. I think saying 50-50, we're equal partners, we're willing to go half on this. I think setting it at 60 is a wasted bid at this point. It's 10%. I understand other communities are going to, 50% is going to be the magic number that most other communities are going to go, but so I'm willing to go there. But I think it increases our odds if we don't go 60.
So, I mean, basically what Ian has just said is neither of those scenarios that you get $250,000 or 50 or even 50.
Like, basically what I'm saying is, let's pick a number to ask for, and whatever that percentage is, that's what the percentage is.
Right.
Let's figure out how much, like, I don't know, $250,000 sounds like a good round number that they might be looking for. That allows them to spend out their money and spread it out widely, and that's something they're going to want to do. Let's be realistic about it. They're going to want as many projects as possible. So if we ask for a similar amount for both projects, I don't know if the percentage really matters. Let's just ask for a similar amount. Hopefully they like one of them.
I agree.
I can support that.
Yeah.
250 each, and then whatever that percentage number arrives at, that's fine.
Trina.
Oh, I still want to stick with 40, 60. I mean, I do want to have a better chance of winning, but I also know that we probably have a lot less chance of the bike trail happening without the money coming through. So I do want to have the higher amount in there so it's even truly an option for us.
Right? Anyone else? We're all over the place.
Looks like my calculations, the Dickinson Street, 40% would be $342,000. So if we, I don't know, I'd be on board with just asking either 300, 350 for that one, and then 250 for the bike trail. Yeah.
Right.
But I do think, to Ian's point, I think that's more, it's easier for them to grab onto something than they want 40% of this project. But if you just had a number.
Jason, do you think dollar amount strategy is better than asking for a percentage? Or it's going to be the same? I mean, either way.
I honestly just don't know with this new program and the new individuals that, I mean, if we had some precedent, I could say where I think this would go and what I would recommend. I can certainly make a nice percentage with a decimal point. That'll stand out. 32.4%. Everybody will be like, where'd they come up with that? We better look at this application closer. But yeah, I think at this point, just coming to some, whether we pick dollar amount and back into a percent or pick a percent, I think your logic is good. Because I think everybody realizes that asking for 90%, which the grant offers, is just not viable. So we have a lot of discussions about asking for this match of, 40, 50, 60%, kind of half the value. So if you, to me, if you can't agree on a percentage and you like dollar amount approach, we can come up with a percentage, and the percent is then what it becomes. So I'm okay with either. I don't think it's a bad way, depending on however which way you want to go.
And again, for either project, if you told me that I had a $250,000 to $300,000, head start, I'm doing it. And otherwise, that street will sit out there for 10, 15 more years, and nothing will happen to it. It will deteriorate even further. It's a pedestrian nightmare and parking nightmare right now with a new business that opened up down the road and with the project you're going to get, we got 20 or 30 more parking stalls in the downtown area, and that to me is a winner. So I like the dollar amount, like 275. Maybe it's 275 for both, and go from there. I don't know. Need something to move forward here. Yeah, go ahead.
I propose we do 350,000 on Dickinson and 250,000 on the bike trail. Anybody want to?
Second.
Wait,
Well,
this isn't it.
no.
Since we need to
Right.
vote, or we need to just keep chewing the fat with more proposals all night? And in order to
again-
move it toward a vote, I'm making it a quasi form of a motion.
I would personally prefer we're requesting the same amount of money for both projects. Let them decide. So
Two- 250
you pick
apiece.
that number.
Ian and I both came up with 250 apiece. We have 2 votes for that. Let's move this forward.
Katie, are you okay with that?
I'm okay with that.
Mike, Trina?
Only 250 on the Dickinson one?
Or it could be 0 and we,
But it could be 0 no matter what. And it's more likely to be 0 no matter what we do, because there's a lot of bids.
we don't know. I hear you though. I mean, I want 90%, but that's not happening. All right, I'm gonna move it forward as is 250. And we can hash it out further at December 2nd. Do you need this by when? Or is consensus good
December
enough?
6th is when I have to hit submit.
So consensus good enough, or we actually need to take a vote on this at the December 2nd meeting? Okay, there you go. All the city attorney says we need to take a vote, so we'll move this forward for that meeting.
I appreciate and apologize for the lengthy discussion. I will incorporate the edits, and if everybody's okay, we'll pull in that section of bike trail that we discussed, and we will make that part of the, well, thank you.
Are you staying up for the next item, or is that?
I'm going to hang around, but
Okay.
I think your city attorney needs
Yeah.
to
Okay.
participate.
Number 11, request from developer for city to accept Woods Lane. Paul, go ahead. You're up.
The
letter.
developer of the Woods of Highland Ridge subdivision has requested that Woods Lane be formally accepted by the city. The developer is telling you that the work has been done, the street is finished, it is 100% complete, and he would like the city to take it over so that the city can snowplow.
Okay. Do you agree with his assessment? Jason? Paul?
That would be adjacent.
Jason?
Technically, the street is completed. There is some restoration work that has to occur, but we've kind of passed the restoration window. So this also applies to the letter of credit discussion that we previously had. So we have proposed on recommending the street be accepted so the snow gets plowed for the residents. Then we address the restoration in spring with the finishing of the other phase. There's 2 phases out there, and he has some work to finish on the other phase as well. So we kind of lump all that finish work together in our mind. So I don't, I certainly think from a resident standpoint, they would appreciate the streets plowed, and I don't think there's any reason why we couldn't accept the roadway, because that's completed. It's just some restorations.
All right, right now there's no plowing being done at all, or no plowing being done by the city?
No plowing done by the city.
They get a sidewalk violation?
Street,
Yeah, there's no penalty for not. Okay.
no, street.
Yeah.
It's essentially a private street at this point until the city accepts it. It's not uncommon for communities to have these streets out there in these cases, and everybody kind of has to do the same as what we're doing. Either we got to accept it or dictate the developer maintain it throughout the winter. So
The developer wouldn't be responsible for maintaining it, but there is no repercussions if we didn't,
if you don't accept it, he has to maintain.
and if he doesn't,
It's a
then what?
private street. Then the residents call the city and complain why we're not plowing their street.
All right, I just want to know what the process, I appreciate that. All right, any questions about accepting Woods Lane, or gonna move that forward? Well, there's another component here to this, but the letter of credit extension, but otherwise, I'm seeing nothing, so. Oh, I'm sorry. It's over now. Go ahead.
I just had a really quick question about what is restoration of the new street?
So again, the developer put the last lift of her final coat of asphalt on very late this year. With that last lip of asphalt, the yards had been graded to drain towards the street. There is no curb back there. It's more just of a rural section. What had happened when he had put the last lift of asphalt on, there's kind of a lip there where the water can't drain into the street properly. So what he'll have to do is come back and kind of fill in that little wedge in the spring to make sure that there's no settlement and that the drainage will get properly into the street. If it fills up, it's not going to flood the houses. It'll just pond along the street a little bit and then eventually get into the street. But we want to make sure that it's corrected and done properly the way the plan had been approved. So that was the restoration component. The developer had felt like he was done with the restoration, but we disagreed and said that it had to be rectified. And he actually sent us a picture that showed it wasn't adequate, claimed it was in his own picture, which is kind of interesting.
So by saying yes, we are taking on the street, we are not, he's still on the hook to do the rest of that work. Is
That's
that
kind of
correct?
the next agenda item, yes.
Great, thank you.
Anyone else on this? Okay, we'll move that one forward to accept Woods Lane at the next meeting. Next up, number 12, Wood at Highland, letter of credit extension.
You'll see in your packet that there was a letter from the developer dated the day after we had our last council meeting, in which he requested that Phase 2 letter be completely released and the Phase 1 letter be extended and reduced. That runs contrary to what directed at the last council meeting to pull the Phase 2 letter of credit, because made the request to extend Phase 1 letter, and he actually decided to make a request at all. I contacted the developer, he contacted me had a rather lengthy conversation, and instead of pulling his letter of credit and sitting on that money for 4 or 5 months, we can't do the work either. He agreed to renew the Phase 2 letter of credit at $59,000 till January 5th, when the Phase 1 letter of credit expires. And then he also agreed to renew the Phase 1 letter of credit at that time for $25,000, which would cover all the restoration work that Jason was just talking about, plus all the other couple items punch list, which will have the effect of wrapping this up into one nice little package, one letter of credit that will expire in June of next year, and then this project. That is my request of his request. Take those steps.
So Phase 1 letter of credit could be extended to June 1st. for $25,151. And then upon filing extended phase 1 letter of credit, phase 2 letter of credit can be released.
Will be released.
And that's June 1st.
That will be on January 5th of 20. So the bottom line is his 2 letters of credit that total 69,000 right now will be letter of credit 25,000 on, which will be sufficient to cover all the.
Yeah. Ed? Oh, I thought you were signaling me. Thoughts? I mean, Jason, do you have any comments on this?
I am happy with that. I think that solves the dilemma of having 2 separate projects and trying to manage 2 letter of credits. It also solves the problem by extending the letter of credit till June, which gives us a hard deadline that he needs to have his work completed by then. Otherwise, we will then be back having the same conversation about pulling it and doing the work, at which time we can do the work because hopefully the weather will be conducive to that conflict. So, it's not the approach I think that we had originally talked about, but I think the developer had came back and offered a solution that at least I think staff and Paul and I thought would work. That's why we brought it back.
Okay. Any questions on this? We good to move that forward?
I'm going to move.
Okay, and we'll move it forward with the recommendation from City Attorney Johnson. All right, thank you. Next up, we have number 13, review of the 2020 MOU for the nutrition site. Is the senior center here. Kim Lang is here if we have questions. Basically, this is an agreement with the Columbia County Health and Human Services Aging and Disability Resource Center for Columbus Senior Center to be the meal site. That sum that up right? Yeah. It's pretty. It's this is housekeeping. It's renew this every year. If there's any questions or comments, we can move forward. Okay, thank you. Next up, I have number 14, review of Senior Center request to start a Facebook page. As you know, we talked about this at, I believe, the last budget meeting where it came up. It was the committee of the whole special meeting on the budget. Yeah. Anyway, in our packet, there actually wasn't anything in the packet, but at our desks tonight, we have something from the Senior Center, and Kim Lang is here. Do you want to just kind of give an overview of what your plans are with the Facebook page?
Sure, I'd be glad to. The Senior Center, like the rec department or the aquatic center, would like the opportunity to use a Facebook page to communicate with not just our seniors, but also with community at large. Again, in the past, I've discussed how the Senior Center has broadened its scope a little bit and is being used more and more by the community. This will allow us to be able to communicate with them in a different format and sometimes a quicker format, especially with weather closings, for example, and those kinds of situations. For the Senior Center itself, our plan is to use it as a marketing tool to reach out to our community, to remind them of general activities, special events, and in some instances partner with some of our current partners to provide PSAs to the community. Talk to folks about how to make their homes safer for the seniors so that they can stay in their homes safer longer. We'll work with the hospital, with clinics in the area, with the ADRC, the Aging and Disability Resource Center, with the PD to offer information for folks to help them just live their lives a little bit better with our help.
Right. Yeah, so I think you have a pretty solid plan here, and have definitely lots of events that I don't think I really knew about looking at this. So, and I'm sorry I missed the euchre tournament because I didn't see it until it was too late. And Facebook would have probably been a good way to see that. I understand that you'd work with our, if approved, you'd work with our media coordinator to set the page up.
Correct. The media coordinator would set it up based on the guidelines that our other Facebook pages are set up. It would be, again, the plan the plan that I've presented to you, it would be presented to the new city administrator on a monthly basis, just to review the topics, just to have his input, his or her input. But then they would be created. Before they get posted, I would review them to make sure they're correct, and either I would post them or in my absence or at my direction, our assistant would do that for us. I would monitor the site myself daily, and again, with my assistant being someone to back up to make sure it's monitored every day in case I'm not available to do that. So it would never be just left to live its own life. We would always make sure that we're part of it. I think it's an important tool. More and more of our seniors and, of course, always their family and friends already are Facebook users, so it's a way for us to really keep in good communication with the community at large in a way that we don't currently.
You would be surprised the amount of seniors that are on Facebook now.
We do have a lot of seniors who are on Facebook.
I will say the worst thing I did was helping my dad set up his account. That was a nightmare. Anyway, Katie?
I just wanted to say that I think that that's a great idea. And I do think, while seniors that are Facebook users will benefit, but I also think that the community outreach will grow quite substantially, hopefully.
Yeah.
And that they're learning about all the activities and different things.
Exactly.
Agreed. So I guess what we need to do is move this forward. We would need to make sure that the policy, we would add a line, a letter G to 6.01 under Facebook, the approved account. If everyone's okay with moving this forward to approve it. So we would just need to update the policy. Rely on our staff to take care of that and have it ready for the next meeting. Any other questions for Kim? We're good moving this forward? Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks for hanging out and waiting. All right, next up I have review 2020 budget. We have getting close to the end of the light at the end of the tunnel. We've had a lot of meetings, several hours of time put in by staff and by us up here. So Kim is going to give us a little presentation of the budget.
Thank you, and I do want to say thank you to all of you because it really has been a process, and it is a lot of hard work on everybody's part, department heads, everybody, to put a budget together every year. And so what I'm going to do is just go through this very briefly. I know you still have a fair amount of agenda to get through yet tonight, so I'm going to just run through this. Of looking at all of the budgets that the council will adopt in the budget document this year, we have roughly $10.8 million in budget. Of that, we have $7.5 million in revenues, leaving us about $3.3 million in tax dollars that we need to fill the gap, be able to have all of the budgets adopted and be able to fund all of the projects, services that we offer. That's about a 30.8% mark of total of the revenues that we would need in tax. Looking at that as a pre-tax or pre-TIF or operational taxing rate, we're looking at $7.82, an increase of 28 cents from 2018's tax rate of $7.50. Unknowns at this time are the fact that we don't have the state school tax credit yet, the lottery credit, or the first dollar credit numbers, which have a direct impact on that final tax that you'll see on your tax bill. And again, we mentioned that we have the public hearing on December 2nd at 6:30 here to hear citizen comments on the proposed 2020 budget, which is on the city's website at this moment in time. And I encourage anybody that is or would like to go on the treasurer's page and take a look at the budget, and if they have any questions, to contact an alder or give me an email or a call, and I'd be more than willing to answer any questions that anyone that's listening tonight would have. In 2019, the city's assessed valuation did increase. We actually increased by over $21 million to $428 million. $181,000 for our value. New industry in the city, which is another huge positive that I just want to point out, is that we've created over 100 new jobs in 2019 with bringing in of new industry into the city. On kind of a downside, the city's assessment ratio did drop to 90.4% in 2019, which is a 6% drop. That is pretty significant. State law requires municipalities to be between 90 and 110% in their assessment ratio, which means we're going to have to take some kind of action to bring our assessment ratio back up into that requirement. So planned in 2020, we will be doing what they call a market revaluation, because we did a full revaluation in 2017. The assessors have a lot of the basic property information, photos, dimensions. They'll look at that, but they'll also look at building permits, new construction, and update the values of those properties so that we can bring ourselves back up into that 90 to the 110. Staffing changes in 2020. We're looking at a new part-time 20-hour per week shared staffing position between the recreation and the senior center. Also, we added to the budget the ability to look at and staff additional crossing guards, and that's included in the 2020 budget. Another shift is the trash and recycling. We're moving the recycling center costs into the trash and recycling fund, which means that the fee that people see on their tax bills will change slightly, because it's going to now be incorporating the cost of that recycling center. So we're looking at a 67-cent per month change, or a $7 per year increase in that fee, going to $168 per year if the council is comfortable with that move. Our emergency medical services, we belong to a district. We're in the last year of the contract with LifeStar. Our cost right now is $18.70 per person for a paramedic level service. Municipal court, that's a new initiative that the city started this year, and so in 2020 they'll see their first full year of operation. So that's a new fund that you're going to see in the budget this year. Debt service, the payments did increase from 2019 to 2020 by $66,269. It's kind of self-explanatory there. We have about $1.1 million in payments this year, but because of special assessment payments we receive, reimbursement from other funds like the TIF districts, and the use of reserved funds that we have set aside for debt service payments, our payment will be, or our levy will be $780,470 in 2020. New in 2020 as well is Tax Incremental Financing District number 5. That was essentially created in an area on West James Street to help G.D. Roberts with an expansion, and also to hopefully help other businesses that are in the district with their potential expansions, or we do have some vacant land there, bring in a new business in that area. Capital Projects Fund kind of lists what we've done so far this year. The new fire truck, the new end loader for Public Works. We did some work at the recycling center. We paid off the last of the police squad's lease payment. Engineering costs for the Highway 89 or Farnham Street project will continue. That's with the Department of Transportation, and obviously engineering for the Hibbard Street project is contained within that fund. In 2020, projects that we've slated so far and funded are the unveiling of the Roadmap 2050 project, which should be happening in 2020, and more improvements to the recycling center, work on the police department's building facade, and continued engineering for the Highway 89 project, the Department of Transportation. Another new fund, City Loan Program, is in for 2020, and we'll be talking about that here in the next agenda item as well. The guidelines for this, as Matt Schreiber mentioned, are going to be worked, I think, with CDA this year, and hopefully we'll have enough funds on hand that we'll be able to implement some smaller grants in 2020. New in 2020, these are some significant projects that we're currently talking about or have already agreed with. Street reconstruction, obviously Hibbard Street, the project that's going to be occurring in 2020. Required borrowing for that at this point is $1.5 million, and that project is slated to be completed in the year 2020. Another borrowing that we're talking about is the general obligation note, which will look at different infrastructure repairs for different facilities within the city, as well as other things like the mill and overlay that we were talking about earlier, the police department's radio replacements, public works department equipment replacements for older pieces of equipment. And if all of these projects get taken care of, we have an estimate of about $1 million to borrow for that. And lastly, for the sewer utility, which would be a revenue bond, not a general obligation bond, we're looking at the Huber screen replacing an original screen that was in the wastewater treatment plant, along with looking at sludge storage capacity. I'm sorry, I'm trying to hurry through this and I shouldn't. And if we move forward with both of those, we're looking at about $1.5 billion in revenue. So total proposed new borrowings in 2020 is about $4 million at this moment in time. And obviously we have to talk more about the general obligation note and the mill and overlays we'd like to do. The sewer utility, as Dave Arnott reported at the last meeting, kind of gave us an update where they were as far as the design bid process. So that should be coming probably early in 2020. And that's really about where we are with the budget at this moment in time.
Thank you. Appreciate you putting that narrative together. I have not seen a copy of that, so if you could forward that to me,
I sure can.
would like to have that for my records. I'm sure the rest of the council would like to see that as well.
Sure. I can also share with
Any questions or comments on the budget from Kim or for Kim? Okay. Nothing? Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. Ian.
Just one quick thing with the assessment going down so much. Did we lose anything large, or? And so it just
No.
makes absolutely no sense. Do we know if we have to use that same company that did the last one, or if we can move forward with someone that might be?
You know, we are under contract with Associated Appraisal. And the only thing I would caution is that assessments are supposed to be, per statute, they're supposed to look at things as of January 1st. So to start in November for, say, like going out for proposals, it would be difficult. It's not something that couldn't be done, but it wouldn't be something that I think we'd necessarily want to bite off at this point in time. Plus, from the contract standpoint, I don't know what our termination agreement is. If there has to be a 6-month notice, 60 days, I guess that would be something that I'd have. Is it 60?
60 days, but it's clause.
I mean, I would argue we would be able to have show cause to terminate. No, the amount of mistakes that they've made, but but I was talking for the next one that you mentioned in there for 20, not doing it immediate. But the market evaluation.
Yeah, that would be done in 2020 for the values as of January 1st.
So what you're saying is switching companies right now would be very difficult or almost impossible. We're under contract. We just renewed, from what I understand.
I think you're in the first year of a 4-year contract, if I remember correctly.
Right. There is and I'm not a lawyer. I have to rely on the city attorney to tell us that whether we have a shot for cause. It doesn't sound good. So I agree. I wanted to know. I want to know why there have been years lately. They've definitely caused some strain in the city. Trina.
Oh, no, for Ian's question, I was just wondering if the Shopko Center losses for having someone there, did that make a difference? Because the structures are still the same. Okay.
Actually, if you go out to the treasurer's page under helpful information tip, probably the last 5 or 6 years worth of property sales data is out there. And if you really look at what's happening is there's becoming a larger discrepancy between actual sale prices and assessed valuations. And it's not really uncommon right now for me to see $80,000, $90,000, $100,000 differences between an assessed value and a sale on quality properties in the city. So I think that's really what's driving this more than anything else, is that we're seeing, just a big difference between the two. And I think that's the reason why we saw such a dramatic drop just in 1 year. Before that, we were averaging about 3% a year, which would have given us another year to kind of position ourselves to do another revaluation. But to drop 6% in 1 year is a pretty dramatic drop.
We did that in 2017.
Yeah, we started this.
Comment? More questions for Kim? All right. None. Thank you, Kim, for all the work you guys have done on that. Like I said, a good presentation. Try to get a copy of that.
I sure will.
All right. Well, I have next up review resolution 2219 to recognize the creation of TIF 5 and Fund 260. Kim's still up there, so go for it.
This is really basically more housekeeping than anything else. The GASB, Governmental Accounting Standards Board, issue number 54, and it's older, it's from about 2010, requires that municipalities recognize funds and their purposes. And so there's a basic resolution that they had drafted at that point that we've used to recognize new funds and their creations. Basically what it really boils down to is what they were accomplishing is saying, okay, if you create a fund, all of its revenue, all of its expenses, and the equity stays within the particular fund. And so that's basically what this resolution does, is it recognizes the creation of TIF 5, and it recognizes the creation of Fund 260, the city loan. And that's, like I said, it's really more housekeeping.
Questions for Kim? Okay. Move that forward. This will be just another one of the check boxes off that long list of things we have to do to get this set up, right? I mean, we're moving along, but I know there are more steps, right? For creating the TIF, or is this one of the final?
The TIF is already created. This is more from the accounting standpoint.
Right. Sorry, that's what I meant.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else? All right. Thank you, Kim. Next up, review quote from Envirotech Equipment for repairs for our televising camera at the wastewater treatment plant. At your desk, there was a new, formal quote from Envirotech. Like there's some issues with it. Bottom line is the recommendation from staff is they want to fix the camera for a total of $2,326.06. And again, being at the wastewater treatment plant, this is not taxpayer levy dollars coming from one of the funds at in that budget. Kim, what fund was that? Would that come out of?
It would come out of Fund 600, the sewer utility.
Okay. Is there?
There's a specific line for the televising and mapping that they would use to take care of it.
Okay. Mike. Gotcha. Thank you. Any other questions? All right, we'll move that forward. Next up, review general engineering building inspection contract for 2020. Paul, is this you?
Sure. Actually, 18, 19, 20, and 21 kind of all rolled together in one big package. If you so choose, the contract for general engineering is set to renew on January 1, and if I find the damn thing, there it is. I've reviewed the contract. It's pretty standard from your past years, and I didn't have any specific concerns with it, but it is to allow general engineering to continue doing its services as city building inspector. I believe it's for 1 year. Thank you.
All right, on a staff level, I haven't heard anything negative for general engineers building inspection services. I understand Dion is the contact, the building inspector, and I've heard really good things. Don't know if there's any recommendation to not renew this agreement, so didn't see anything in the packet or any red flags, so I'm happy with that if you're happy with the content of the actual contract. Anybody have any questions on the contract part? They're gonna roll so that, you know, there are some new hourly rates, it looked like.
Yes, that will be memorialized down in number 20.
All right, so why don't you continue then? We'll go move on to 19.
Number 19, as part of Dion's review of our building code, and because there's been a change in state law that allows municipal building inspectors to now do plan approval for certain commercial projects instead of having to go back through the SPS and waste a lot of time waiting and additional fee to the state. The law has changed so that general engineering can now do plan review of certain municipal commercial projects. That requires some additional language to be put into city's ordinance in some place. So we decided to do, at staff level, do a complete review of Chapter 18, which is your current building code. So what you have in front of you now is the first draft of the building code, and I realize you haven't seen it before. And what I'd like to do right now is just go through and tell you the big things that we changed. And then if you're really bored over the next couple of weeks, you can read through this with a fine-tooth comb and really appreciate it. Anyway, the first thing that's important for the council is 1816, and that just tells you what is subject to a building permit in the city. Each municipality is a little bit different. Each municipality requires building permits for different things. 1816 is what Columbus requires permits for. You may want to add, you may want to subtract from that list. That's all a fair question. That's where you are right now. Moving forward, we are in 1822, the city of Columbus is the recipient for all of the building inspection fees. In the past, the fees were paid directly to the building inspector. The building inspector, the city, Dion, PERS, and the rest of us prefer that the city be the collector of the money so that we know it's actually. In 1824, the building permit that is issued by Dion is good for a period of 2 years, which give the person receiving the permit 2 years to do the project, whatever the project, big or small. Dion has requested that be changed so that he gets the set for the. If it's a house, okay, 2 years is probably about right. If it's something that new HVAC piece or something like that, 2 years is probably not. So that's just building in a little flexibility and a little common sense to the project. And having seen this in other municipalities where somebody takes out a 2-year permit to do a siding project, something like that, that's actually a really good change. The Article 6, that's 18-40, that is the new language that allows Dion to do commercial not Dion in particular, but general engineering commercial plan review. Those are the magic words that SPS is requiring the city to adopt so that we had a lengthy conversation about what to do with fences. And that is Article 8. And we are proposing that all fence permits transferred out of the building inspector and into the zoning administrator. As the fence code is in, the fence rules are in the zoning code, that would seem to make sense that that be a Matt Schreiber issue instead of a Dion issue. So that you'll see those sections moved out. Right, yeah, they're gonna be moved into zoning. Well, actually, they're already in the zoning, quite honest. Right. Right. You see a whole bunch of red lines in 1883 through 18, excuse me? Oh,
We didn't get the red line.
oh, okay. We took out a whole bunch of, now I don't know what you have.
Link, yep.
You have clean copy. Which I can't. Thank you. Forward. Oh, good. In section 8, we had a whole bunch of language about moving and demolishing buildings and a whole bunch of DNR code that I had added from another municipality. After talking with Dion, we took all of that back out. So that was something that the city never had, and now you still don't, for everything I just said. Okay. The last significant change to the building code is any and everything that had to do with the city's property maintenance code we are proposing to take out and make a separate chapter all by itself. And again, and which leads me right into number 21 on your list. The reason that we are proposing to do that is because property maintenance is more zoning administration, more police, more fire, and a little bit of building inspection, but not primarily building inspection issue. So we thought it would be better as a standalone chapter instead of being lumped in with building code. The proposed chapter 20 that you have in front of you has not been reviewed by development team yet, has not been reviewed by the property maintenance yet. That's Friday. So this literally is a first look at that for everybody. That you hear us talk about the property maintenance issues every now and then. Now you can see firsthand and up close what we're really talking about. So there's not a specific timeline on any of this. The building code we'd like to have adopted by the end of the year, just because that matches up with Dion's contract. That also matches up with the SPS requirement for the delegated municipal authority.
Okay, and then does that,
I didn't realize you didn't have the red line. But anyway.
that was 18, 19, 20, or I'm sorry, 18, 19, 21, right?
18, 19, 20, and 21.
We didn't talk about, did we? The fees?
Oh, sorry. Oh, I skipped over on 20. You did. Item number 20 is the as part of the city's changing over to adopting all of its payments and fees by resolution. The resolution that is proposed to adopt all the building code fees, which is part of Dion's contract, is what item number 20 is all about. And that is a resolution that you can adopt at your next meeting to set the rates for 2020. When you look at that, you will see that there are, on Dion's schedule, actually general engineering schedule. There are two sets of fees there. The GEC fees is what general engineering charges the city, and right-hand column fees is city tax on 10%. Collect that. It's part of the process.
Okay. Trina?
Oh, are we having a longer conversation on this later before this is put through? I mean, I just had questions on things like section 1815, where basically you need a permit to do anything in the inside or outside of your house except for painting and replacing the floor.
Right. I would suggest that 18. Nope. I would suggest that 19 and 21 come back now.
Yep.
For your next meeting. This is a lot to digest, and now you kind of know the basic framework and why this is before you and what's going on. And at the next meeting, we can have a much detailed conversation.
Yeah, I was gonna kind of try to put a bow on that whenever Paul was done. I had 19 future cow. We'll talk about this again. Gives us time to go through it. It's pretty lengthy, and like you said, there's something that you caught right away that that you'd want to discuss further. Then 20, and then 20. That we'll have to do it next. So it's adopted for January 1, or actually we have until. Okay. Right. Okay. Sure. Yep, and then 21. I put future. Go ahead, Mike.
I just wanted to ask if the updated fee schedule was just kind of a general engineering recommendation, or if staff has like sat down and went over the old and the new, or where that.
As far as I know, staff didn't have any.
Okay. All right.
Ed?
I would like to see, 19 and 21 go to the newly formed ordinance committee rather than at a cow. These meetings are long enough, and I think that there's a lot of information in here that needs to be gone over. I completely agree with Trina that the idea that you have to get a building permit to replace your furnace kind of strikes me as surprising and something that we may need to look. But I rather than work on it at a cow, if we created a new committee to work on ordinances, this is a complete surprise to me. I'd like to see us work at it at a level lower and then bring it to the cow, where already people's patience with the length of meetings is getting shorter. So that's my suggestion.
Thank you. Mike, you have
I don't disagree with your position, Ed, but we're going to have to schedule a ordinance committee meeting tomorrow, and then we're going to have to make a recommendation to the committee of full for the end of the year. So I completely understand. I wish the ordinance was up and running. We're going to have to find a way to just all that happen to adopt the ordinance and the fee schedule. I agree. I'd rather do it there than be here till 10:30 at night. But we need to try to schedule that.
Can we leave this as an option? If you can and you do have time, you can agree on a date before. I don't recall who was on that committee. Is it Ed and Trina and Mayor and Ian? So there's 4 people on that. I mean, I feel like if there is a chance to do it, then you should give it a shot. But if the timing doesn't work out, I think we should leave it on, send it to the next committee of the whole, and I can also review the next committee of the whole meeting and see. There were a lot of things on this one that we just had to get through, but I can also look at that meeting and see if there's anything, so we have more time to dig into some of these other. We can talk about it further. So that being said, I mean, like Paul said, we can move this all to the committee of the whole for the 2nd of December, and or if the subcommittee of the municipal, or I'm sorry, the ordinance committee can get together, then I would recommend that. If anybody have any disagreements or concerns there? Okay. All right. So that being said, that brings us checked off next little group of items. And next up, 22, review the possible addition of communities to the Columbus area EMS group. Gotten some information in our packet about this. We talked about it at, I think, the last budget special committee of the whole. Kim put an email in the packet. There's a couple other emails about the cost and good stuff. I don't know who wants to. Is there anybody on staff that wants to take the lead on this, or Mayor Tome?
I can say that I did follow up with Jeff Slotin from Fall River, who's the chair of that committee after the last meeting, just to kind of let him know, or find out the process in which they're trying to accomplish this, and I think my email is in here. Yes. I don't think that the group itself has determined what the exact process is going to be, unfortunately, and we're working up against a timeline here at the end of the year. I think they're looking for each community to just kind of run it through their board or their village board or city council to kind of give a nod and a wink before anything is officially considered. My concern is that if we have a current agreement we're a part of, it seems like we're kind of casually saying, sure, we'll do that, but we want to be sure we're not waiving our rights as part of that. So I think that they should be focusing on the two other groups that want to participate personally and working a temporary agreement of sorts with them to allow them to be part of that until we structure a contract of 2020. I haven't gotten an update or a response from Jeff, so I don't know if there's a meeting coming up for that group. They're probably waiting for every community to chime in and see where they're at, but I haven't gotten any updates since that. They're trying to do it a little bit more informal than we would like.
My concern about this is, we're $678 of savings. That's what the impact of the EMS our contribution would be to that service. Unless they're adding an extra ambulance on staff, I feel like we're potentially losing a level of service in the city that I don't know if it's worth $670. That being said, it's very possible that they can go out and individually, I think they can just individually contract with Fall River, or I'm sorry, Lowell and Reeseville, and it is what it is. They can do that on their own. So I personally am not sold on this. I think it should be maybe if we have to a trial, like I think maybe, I don't know if that's what there would be maybe a trial for the rest of the contract and then go from there. But they're already missing. We get that report every month or so that shows what are the services that they're providing, and they're missing response times already. What will this do? How will this impact that? So I feel like unless they're adding another ambulance to the service or more staff, then I would be happy. That's where I'm at. Katie?
Do you agree with you there, Andy? It does concern me that communities that are farther away, even additional. But if they're able to go out on their own and do the same thing, regardless of whether or not give our approval, I guess it doesn't really matter what I think. However, I do think that we have to be fair and treat this as a temporary agreement, just as we did with Fall River. That I feel like again, them, and I certainly wouldn't want to do this for a long term. We're already having now.
And then if it was a temporary basis, you could determine in that year if our level of service was down. We're relying on their data. They're telling us if they miss calls. Well, again, they can take this on themselves if whether we agree or not. And so,
It obviously like kind of just a hard decision to want to wait a year. Things don't go well. We all know the impact that have.
my
Time sensitive.
Yeah.
So
my opinion is should be the EMS should be some sort. Well, sorry, our service area. That's a very valid point, Mayor Tome, and I think something on your wish list in the future. But I think maybe our EMS district could be some similar fire service here. That's where I'm at. I don't know what, Paul. I mean, you've had a lot of conversation here. What do you recommend here?
My comments have basically already been made. I think Katie just said that one of you said there's nothing that prohibits Lifestar from contracting independently with these two on their own without any consent of the city at all.
And servicing it out of that hub.
And servicing out of the Columbus facility. When I first read this, though, my thought was Fall River joined. This is a similar situation. They became a member of the existing agreement trial basis, and I don't understand why you wouldn't plug in Lowell and Reeseville into your existing contract and see what happens. Good for a year, because at the end of next year you have to have a new agreement.
2 miles or 15 miles is different.
Well, understood. No, I understand that, but if you're worried about the loss of service, this is a good way to gauge it.
Sure. I agree. I mean, I think I said that there is that opportunity.
I don't know what the financial impact is either way on them coming in or them not. It's a different.
For this year, it's 670. Go ahead.
2 ambulances, and if you're on a 15-minute run and more than one medical emergency, that is. But I'm sure it doesn't happen very often, but probably often enough when it.
Chime in.
Don't know what we can do besides express concerns to the group, because I believe this CAEMS group can ultimately make that decision. Correct? Don't need our authorization. In the email to Jeff, I did bring up the fact they have a agreement with the 2 new villages that want to come in. Did say that felt like comparison to the way Fall River and was different happening right now. Don't know that I see that, but they apparently had a kind of struggling EMS provide services, and they were kind of looking for the CAEMS kind of a stopgap, because Reeseville and Lowell basically just getting priced out of the group that they're working with right now. That you have that leverage at that time. Those 2 villages don't have another alternative. They're kind of buying into this group, and our ambulances are going 15 miles outside of town for the exact same per capita cost as we and the other participating municipalities are paying. I see that as a path to Lifestar negotiating a much higher cost. They want to include 2 municipalities. I do think we get really good service here for the cost they pay, but I think by us expanding that group without having a larger conversation, we may be increasing our costs just to include other municipalities, and that's my concern. I don't want to be selfish. I think that we are a rural hub where a lot of people rely on things for us, but again, we need to make sure that we have our level of service where we need it, not putting ourselves at risk for a 1-year experiment.
So, to be fair, 15 minutes, 11 miles.
Okay. Well, I know it's stated that it's right on Highway 66.
Yeah.
I get it, but you know, 2 ambulances can only cover so many communities because you never predict what's going to
The-
happen, and we've gotten used to a pretty high level of service from Life.
The Otsego is 9 miles away. So if there's a call on Otsego and they're on a transport to Beaver Dam, where's the ambulance? Well, we have to rely on our first responders for that. Well, they're going to get to where they're going, but okay. I think we should express our concern. And
I guess here's where I am. I think that if Lifestar wants to reach out to Reedsville and the whole, to start negotiating cost of service to cover that community, that they should do that. But we still have our current agreement with that until the agreement is up next year. We don't want to negotiate in terms of service at this point. Can't verbally just give them consent. My point of view to go in and kind of alter what our terms of the agreement have been perceived.
Agreed.
Agreed.
Okay. Who's? Oh, hey, Dave. Welcome.
I think you have, I think you have a valid point, Mayor. My question is, how do we follow up on this?
It's going to be my next question.
Okay,
I
do
was
you
gonna
want
look-
me to do that, or do we do that jointly?
I'd be happy to put something on your plate, not that you don't have enough, but I think following up with Jeff
But I think-
Slotin, who is the chair of this committee, who's from Fall River,
All right.
is the person that we need to kind of convey that message to. I think
So
they need-
the concern is being stretched and compromising service, high level of service to the citizens of the city of Columbus,
and
correct?
Fall River. They're your
Well,
two. They're your
there's-
two biggest communities in.
Well, all of the participants, I believe, do they understand that they are maybe verbally agreeing to the terms of the current agreement and allowing these other? And I just think that there's a better approach, you know, to Lifestar dealing directly with those communities that are looking to come in, and maybe they can get a better sense of what the needs are for those communities in the next year. It may be cost prohibitive, but they're currently dealing with another provider that's working.
So
Okay.
Dave's going to follow up.
I'll happy to work with. Have a partner.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I think they were looking for an opinion.
The C8 thing, but it has
Well, we can express the concerns and let them respond to it, see what they come up with.
Thank you.
You good, Katie? Yeah, I know.
So
All
this is referred to the interim city administrator?
Yeah.
Or to the next committee of the whole?
Well,
Yes to both. Okay.
Both.
Thank you.
Yep.
I know she already got a plate
Yeah.
there.
He's batting
I don't know what
1,000.
it says though.
All right. Next
what
up,
does it mean?
review city administrator position description, salary range, position announcement, and schedule for recruitment. I don't know who would take the lead on this.
On the last item, he's got his light on already.
Yeah, it's already on.
So again, we'd like to express our appreciation for the opportunity to work with you in recruiting the next city administrator. At our kickoff meeting on the 8th with the mayor, we looked at the options, job descriptions that you had put together, and the mayor indicated that he would like Kevin and I to review them and submit our recommendations, and that's what you have tonight. The main thing that I understood from that conversation is that that in the next administrator, you want a higher level of skill set in the financial area. And that is why we've recommended the option of city administrator treasurer. This adds the statutory authority, which is clear. In addition to that, we feel it's important to add that the next administrator in the job description would be responsible for directing, not just being a part of, but directing the preparation of the city budget and implementing that budget and continuing to monitor it and keeping the council informed, and of course working with the department heads and staff. We tend to feel, and both Kevin and I have 33 years of experience full-time as administrators and manager, that to combine the finance director with the city administrators is kind of a stretch, both just physically being able to accomplish those two important tasks and meet expectations, and also in recruiting someone, man or woman, for a city this size, you would have to increase the salary significantly. So that's the main thought process in recommending that option to you. Kevin did a salary survey of comparable communities in 19, including the city of Columbus. You've got a copy of that in the packet. And based on that analysis, we're looking at a range of 82,000 to 95,000, and we feel fairly confident that we could attract qualified candidates for your consideration with that range. We would be competitive with that salary range. The schedule that you've looked at, we've also drafted a position announcement. What we expressed to the mayor, and what's been our experience, is that this time of the year it's very difficult to recruit because of the holidays. And if you agree with this, we would be placing the announcement sometime after Thanksgiving, and with the deadline in January, and going through that process, the screening process that's outlined there in the schedule, and having a decision or an employment agreement negotiated in February with the candidate, the new administrator here, by mid-March. And my role in that would be, Kevin is the lead recruiter. I'd be working with him and working with you, available, obviously, and would be available for working with the new administrator for a smooth transition. My experience has been that about a week is enough with the next administrator. So you'd have two of us for about a week, and I would go back home, and the new administrator would be working with you. So are there any questions? We would look for direction on the position announcement. Do you have the highlight in your position announcement, as far as just highlighting their other opportunities or challenges that would be that you'd want to highlight in the position announcement that for the candidates?
Trina, go ahead.
Oh, I mean, we really just need some possibly lengthy discussion. We have been looking in the direction of a city administrator with a heavy financial background as most likely probably the ideal, but that truly has not been set in stone. I mean, I would love to see different options, different choices for how the position should go. Is it too much of a stretch? We don't know. At a certain point where we have to pay them, if it's much more money, should it be two people? We're still kind of at that questioning level where we're trying to hash it out.
Well, if I would have been here back in August, I would have been very involved in distributing a memo with goals that were set by the council in building the budget, and I would be involved in directing that with assistance from the finance director that can do the accounting and have accurate information that with some assistance in the analysis and going through the process, writing an executive summary, and then being in a position to present that. My experience has been, and Kevin has as well, that when we work with the finance director, we've had someone there that is basically doing, the accounting function and ability to help with analysis. And you need that. You need that daily, weekly, monthly person doing that work. So we're kind of we kind of landed in between those two there with the recommendations we made. By adding the treasurer, it's a statutory authority that, and we feel that we can attract qualified candidates that could meet that skill set. It wouldn't be a large pool, but I think that we could attract candidates there, and that would be a good fit.
And that's with the range that you have listed in here. With that skill set, you feel comfortable you could recruit somebody, according to the numbers I see here, under what our previous city administrator was making. Not that I would necessarily want to hit the bottom level, but have a far greater impact on our finance than what we had prior.
Yes.
And is this statutorily, is that the treasurer, is it appointed by the mayor and council? Or the
Yes.
mayor?
Yes.
He could appoint you treasurer tomorrow.
No,
Who's
it'd
it?
be the
How's
mayor
it?
and the council.
I'm sorry, Paul. I'll let you look that up, Paul. Ian, go ahead.
It was actually really similar to what you were getting at. Like, does it necessarily have to include that they'll be the treasurer? That is, I mean, if we want someone with a strong financial background, I get it. I do like that you came to the conclusion that having the finance director, administrator is one position is, I thought that time. Do we necessarily have to say that they're going to be the treasurer? Is there any sort of advantage of having the administrator being the treasurer as opposed to the finance? Like, is it 6 of one, half a dozen of the other? Just depends on who's the current finance director and who's the current administrator, or is there an advantage one over the other?
Well, I guess my thought is that it's a statutory position that would be added to the administrator and gives them more authority in that area.
Then you're.
In my understanding is that that's what you're looking for.
Well, that was discussed several meetings, including a meeting. Yeah, I mean, this is, to me, it was clear we were moving in this direction, whether it was finance director or treasurer. And so I'm a little confused by Karina's comment. I mean, I thought this was clear. But I love what you've put together here. You've touched on many questions that I had. I think that we do need to, I think, first and foremost decide on, if this recommended job description is what we want to go with. I also think it's important to note that having the treasurer and the finance director might be a good thing for them to be separated, because now you have two different sets of eyes on the same set of books, and it's more transparency. There's more accountability. Ed?
Is what you're saying with this description that the administrator / treasurer would potentially, let's say, reduce the role of the finance director into more, as you were saying, accounting and less policy function.
Yes.
Whereas we seem to be currently operating in a situation where the finance director exercises a great role in budgetary policy. And this would be restoring more of the policy oversight to the administrator.
Yes.
All right, and I think I, as a council member, am in favor of that.
That's another good point, Ed. I appreciate that. Go ahead, Ian.
I don't know, I still don't understand. I really think it comes down to the individuals in those positions. How do we know the next administrator is going to be the right person for that role, and the next finance wouldn't be? Like, I don't think there's a necessity to outright say administrator and treasurer. We can look for an administrator with a strong finance background. When talking to them and the interviewing process, say that there is a strong chance that we would also like you to be a treasurer, but we don't have to say they're going to. Like, it doesn't have to be part of the job description. Like, what if down the line we want it to be the finance director? Like, I can see there being a separation of powers and having two people with these powers better than having one person with both. I think there's good and bad to both. I don't see why we have to say that person's automatically going to be director. It just doesn't make any sense.
Karina?
Oh, yeah, I'm still not ready to definitely have it be a definite treasurer, administrator combined. I'm just not sure. And it seems like so much to expect from an individual to be not only competent, but excellent for managing the staff, keeping track of everything in the city, and all of the finances concurrently, and getting to know the city too. Yeah, I'm just not sure.
I think you're misconstruing a statutory responsibility of a treasurer versus finance director. The treasurer has a statutory responsibility and financial oversight to a certain degree. It doesn't mean they're doing that job of a financial director all day long. It just provides another check and balance, I think, by having a financial manager, director, department, and then an administrator with the statutory authority of the treasurer to, as David said, I think control more of the financial policy versus the work financial part. That's, I think, what I've been hearing for the last few months, and I don't know why. It seems like there's a whole bunch of fear with placing a dual role onto the administrator, treasurer.
So would we still be looking to have a financial director in addition to this position? Most likely.
The next step, yeah, we're trying to get her first step, which is finding a new administrator. I haven't received an official resignation or retirement yet, but I believe that verbally we've heard enough that that's why we're sort of looking in direction to have our bases covered with the new administrator before we get on to the project. We can't have 4 job descriptions to give to Dave to go look for a candidate. He needs to have a focus. And if he comes back and says, we can't find your candidate, it doesn't exist.
But I was hoping that he would have 4 descriptions to give to us.
We've already reviewed those descriptions, and we agreed that we need to have people that deal with this on a day-to-day basis and have worked with hundreds of municipalities in Wisconsin to say, here's our recommendation. I've leaned very heavily on Kevin and David to help provide the feedback of why they would pick. How do you check off the boxes? I think they both agreed, as David said, having a finance director and an administrator is probably going to be very unlikely. However, the statutory office treasurer on the administrator is more likely in this pay range that they have provided.
Katie?
You know, I would expect the administrator to have assistance in fulfilling those detailed responsibilities that they would reap the administrator. and you'd have someone that has that little higher financial. So
I actually
you know-
think that if this is written correctly, the job description itself, I think we might attract a candidate that would really enjoy that dual role, especially if somebody comes from the background of having, what we're saying, 7 years of progressive municipal management experience. I think from that perspective, I think that might actually be something that sticks out over other administrator positions in other communities, and maybe they might enjoy that responsibility or at least oversight in the benefit that would.
Ed?
How many surveys did you get back from the council members and mayor as to the qualities that we sought? How many people responded?
Pardon me?
I was sent a survey with list your top qualifications or things you were interested in. How many did you get back out of the 7 of us up here?
I'm sorry, I don't know, because Kevin did this work,
Very
and
good.
I should have said at the top that he cannot be here tonight because he had a presentation in another
Sure.
community.
Is what we're looking for a unicorn, or do these people already exist in cities of this size? People were doing both these roles. Are we looking for something unique and unheard of and off the charts, or is
No.
this something that already
No.
exists? All right. Can we change our mind if we find a candidate that absolutely wows us but doesn't necessarily fit the dual role of city administrator and treasurer?
Well, we think that this gives you the flexibility
Correct.
to do that.
With that
and
flexibility,
try-
if some candidate came in.
And sir, I think the point being made is that you're going out into the market, going to attract people that, from the beginning that have the education, experience, and interest in that both of those roles. And by setting that now, it's more clear, and you're avoiding that duplication, right? I mean, if you don't have the treasurer and that statutory authority on there, then you're gonna have to deal with it at some point. It's better. This is an opportunity in this transition to communicate to the market, to those that would be interested in coming to the city, that this is what you're looking for.
I completely agree, but in addressing Ian's concerns, if some candidate wowed us and we're just like blown away, but they're not quite as strong, and maybe the treasurer thing doesn't fit, we could change our mind, could we not?
Yes,
Thank
you could.
The city
Yes.
attorney is nodding his head. Thank you.
Yes.
And then,
Would you vet them out, though? I mean, would you cut them from? You have a job description, and you're gonna see, okay, well, there's no financial background, so that wow candidate isn't gonna get up here unless you or the mayor are working closely together and figure that out. So there's definitely an opportunity there to miss something like that too.
I guess my point is we can potentially change our mind and drop the treasurer aspect from hiring date if we choose, not necessarily married. If we
Right.
choose down the road to withdraw the treasurer. But at least as of now, to attract the best candidates using the data that I believe was submitted to them as to what we're looking for, which is where I was going with my first question. I believe this is what they gathered on the feedback that we provided. I think it makes sense to go forward in this manner. I would suggest, though, that to work with you on proofreading the first paragraph.
So after I'm just going to ask you to look at the schedule on the back. Just a minute here, just for a minute. So the applications are due January 15th, and we will prepare what we call a mini resume. So we just give the basics of each of the candidates. So you will get all of the candidates. We will meet and review all of the candidates. In our experience is that we asking you to vet them down to 6 to 10. So if you have this wow candidate that you're talking about, you would have the ability to make that decision at that point. But I'm going to be a little bold here and say that you probably will have candidates that will fit this job description, and then you'll have to decide. You make the decision. We don't make the decision. You do.
Okay, the mini resume candidate report, I didn't quite understand if that was before you guys saw the list and cut it to what you think was appropriate.
What we're just trying to do at that point is just give you the basic information, and you'll get, you know, a mini resume of each of the candidates, be a report. You'll meet probably in closed session, review, you'll have it ahead of time, review all of them, and then our objective there is to screen them down to 6 to 10, and we take the next step.
So on 117, when you say candidates, are you referring to candidates you've chosen or the applicant?
All of the applicants.
Okay.
All of them.
Mike?
Yes.
I think, I don't think that we should get hung up on what's considered a dual role. I really don't. I think these are words. You would be shocked to find out how much payroll work our clerk does. When you think of the city clerk, do you think about payroll? I don't. Galen Leaders, our administrative assistant, runs the entire human resources department, not human resources director for the city. I just think that that's part of being in a small community is there are multiple roles and skills that everybody in City Hall has, and I think we're getting hung up on a title. If the city council desires not to have an administrator / treasurer, then don't appoint the administrator as a treasurer. The city council is going to have to appoint that person to be the treasurer. There's a job description for the administrator. There's statutory requirements for the treasurer. I think we're going to be looking for candidates, but I just don't want us to get hung up on words and titles or assuming what their job duties are going to be. We're not trying to scare people off by throwing another title on top of administrator to the point where we're not going to get any out.
Thanks, Mike. Ian?
And that's, like, I didn't mean to, like, cause any sort of argument. That's basically what I was saying. I was trying to ask, is there a benefit to advertising the position as an administrator and a treasurer? Because we're going to have more turnover. The treasurer could be anyone. They don't have to be the administrator. They don't have to be the finance director. We are going to have more administrators and finance directors. Do we need to advertise that we want this person to also be our treasurer, or just that we want them to have a strong financial background? Is there any difference in the advertisement of that? Because when they come, this isn't going to be until spring. What if there's a different person that we would prefer to be a treasurer come spring, because there's going to be more turnover? Like, does it make sense to specifically spell out in our advertisement that we want them to be a treasurer, was all I was saying. And I also did mention that I'm very happy it's not a real dual role, that it's not a finance director and an administrator, because that is very much.
The only thing I would comment on that is I can't sit here and expect anyone to retire. We've heard rumors. We have nothing substantial. Our treasurer now could work for 10 more years. We wouldn't, So I can't make this decision based on
That's exactly what I'm saying too. Like, why do we need to put it in there? Who knows what it's going to be in the spring, or what everything's going to be? Why are we saying that they're going to be the treasurer? Why don't we just say they need to find from?
Well, there were several meetings that we had that you had chose to not be a part of as that part of that process, and this was some of the things that were discussed in those. Which credit to you, that was probably the right way to go, because you were just appointed. I'm on board with recommending the job description as presented. We need to move this forward, or we don't. So I'm going to poll each of us, and I need to know: are you good with number 1 or not? So Ed, Trina? Mike? I'm a yes.
Yes.
Ian?
Yeah, I'm good with it. And the necessity. Like, it doesn't make sense.
Noted. Next, number 2. You have a recommended salary range. I don't know. You need this for your
We do. We'd like to,
Right.
we think it's important to have the salary range in the position announcement. We provided 18 other communities we think are comparable and feel comfortable with the range that's being recommended.
So you're recommending 82 to 95,000.
Correct.
Any comments on the salary range recommended by PAA? Mike?
I would actually be more flexible at the upper end of that, go to 97. I've seen pattern in the last 6.5 years here where we minimize that range down to the point where we don't get enough candidates or qualified candidates, and then we have to start negotiating at the end of the day. And I'd rather just open it up as wide as possible to attract the largest pool of candidates. Well, I'm not sure that all the comparables we have in here, that they're all dual role positions, and I think to consider that as well. The difference between 95 and 97, minimal.
I'm with you on that. Actually, I would open it up farther, but doesn't mean we have to pay him that. That's just going to attract that's just going to get him in the door. So I agree. I would go higher. You're anyway. I don't know who's next. Ed, are you Ed?
I would go higher. We went through this with the police department. I would rather open it higher and see what candidates we draw.
We just had to do something with the lieutenant too with their yeah. Katie, go ahead.
Yeah, I would be okay with going higher as well, maybe a higher range. Like 7 to 100. I don't know if that's too wide of a range.
Would you want to increase the lower range, Mayor, as well, if you're increasing the top range?
What's your profession? Wide range?
Well, I guess my reaction, if you're going to increase the upper range, probably the lower range as well.
I don't know. I'm hoping to keep the lower range lower in case we wind up taking a totally different kind of person than we think we're going to. Just in case we wind up needing to do an additional extra hire, different kind of delegation of duties, I really don't want to oblige us to a super high level when we don't quite know what we're going to take on.
Thanks, Trina. Katie?
I just want to point out that was 82 what we were paying previously? Or, yeah. So
Yes.
I think
82,874, almost 83.
I think that, keeping that range and asking for more of, you're asking a lot of education, you're asking a lot of experience. I think it only makes sense that we should ask a higher salary range. And also I wanted to point out that if you widen this range too much, I think you're going to dismiss a lot of candidates. Just being, why is there such a variance? Are they just wanting to put that in there for the grab more candidates? So it becomes, I think it needs to be wide enough range that we have some wiggle room, but I do think that it shouldn't be.
I will note that the previous city administrator at 6 years was making 82,874, but the previous city administrator also didn't get the annual increase, right? Was that, so really it would have been 84,500. Right. that right, Mayor told me that he didn't get sent, believe we were. So in theory that this should have probably been more like 84.5. Now he had 6 years of experience. So I feel like with I think what was it, 85, 80, what would you say, 82 to 95? I've lost my page here.
That's
82 to 95.
right.
I mean, kind of with Trina on keeping it at 82. You don't know what you're gonna get, but I would like to open up to like the 99 or 100. I mean, doesn't mean that's what you have to give them. We've noted, but again, I'm afraid like we'll run into the same situation we've had with some of our Mayor Tome has indicated with recruiting. Ian?
So, like, I mean, the situations we've had with, like, the police department, I agree, and we were paying much less communities. But in your professional opinion, is this what the norm would be for this position? Like, I don't think we're comparing I think we're comparing apples to oranges when we talk about our difficulties in the past, because those positions we were underpaying. Are we underpaying this position? Do we need to increase it? That's my question. Like, you came up with, or your company came up with that number for a reason, I'm assuming.
The last recruitment that I was part of, and I was the lead recruiter in the city of Mineral Point, 2,500. She started at 80,000. So you're. Does that answer your question? I think.
So is
I
there
think
a
it
need
is
for
low.
us to?
I think what it is right now is on the low side.
Okay, so why would you have recommended the range to stay there?
Well,
then?
I think, when we go out and recruit, the young lady that was hired in Mineral Point was the assistant manager for the village of Brown Deer. And she was committed. She got her master's degree, and she kind of, progressed. She was given more assignments. She was kind of moving and ready to take on that leadership role. So we like to have that there in the event that, that person comes in that has the character, the commitment, the potential that is a good fit for you, that would, grow with the organization and be here for a long time, maybe for a longer term.
I understand that.
So I think that's kind of the thinking with the range.
Right. So are you now saying
versus
that you
someone
think
with
we
more
should?
experience, more education.
Right. But are you now saying that we should increase the range instead of going with what you recommended?
Well, I was just informed that the last administrator did not get the increase. So if he had gotten the increase, it would be about, you said 84.
84.5. So.
Right. So we're basing this solely off of what we were, not off of what the market commands.
It's just based on the comparables that are out.
Okay. Right. So what our current administrator is just one of many that this is based on.
One of 19 here.
So $2,000, give or take, on his salary wouldn't throw it off by more than a few $100s. So what I'm still asking is, are you now saying that we're off by thousands of dollars and should increase what your original recommendation was? Like, were we underpaying? It didn't look to me like we're underpaying. I think
will
it's
disagree
completely
with
different.
I disagree with that, yeah. I'm looking at these.
Other than Baldwin and Mosinee, our previous city administrator was making less and less than everyone else.
Right. Yeah, that's true.
It with lower populations and lower years in positions, or well, it doesn't tell us, I guess, the number of years they have in experience. But Cross Plains, 3,500 population, they're making 87,000, so that's a substantial difference between what we were paying our last administrator. Amaro, 3,500 people, 89,000. Lancaster, 90,000,
Yeah.
3,800.
No, I mean, I totally get it. I'm just confused on why that was the recommendation for the range, if that isn't the appropriate recommendation for the position.
I mean, I am not sure either, but I think regardless, I think we need to open the range up to a higher level to receive higher candidates. That's what the, I'm.
I argued against myself. I can tell you that already. Trina?
Oh, I'm really against bringing the salary way up. I just don't think it'll help bring in steady candidates. I'm just, thinking one of my relatives that, gets a new similar job like every 2-3 years, moving all of the state. He just chases whatever location looks kind of fun and interesting and gives them just a little bit more money. And it just sounds like such an extreme amounts we're putting out there.
Which part?
If we're bringing it up to 100,000 or something plus.
So 5,000 is way extreme. What about the other side? You don't want to move that either?
I don't want to move that one up either.
I will point out, just because we're saying 95, 97, 100, you could pay him 90, pay him 84. Whatever we pay them is who we got. And I think the council should remember our 360 review that we've received, and remember the fact that maybe the salary range that this level of service that we were getting, I don't want to go through that again. I think we need to find a solid candidate that's going to do a great job. And when luckily PA also has that 1-year guarantee, Trina, both love. So I don't know what the right answer is as far as the bottom range. I first thought I should keep it. Now I think it should be moved up. I think the top range should be moved up. Maybe Mayor Tome's 97,000 is a good magic number. I don't know, but we need to we have deadlines here, and we gotta give him a range. Mike, you have your light on. I'm sorry.
I think if we look at the comparables, we are on the low end, figure in the 2%, figure in the dual role. I don't know that the comparables all had a dual role. I would make a recommendation we go from 85 to 8 if we want to get the right candidate. Or if you don't want the right candidate in the door and you want a bargain, we can drop the price as well. I'm not looking for a bargain. This is an opportunity for the city.
Katie?
I agree.
Agreed.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I'm good with 85 to 98. It's fair, and we'll figure out what we're gonna pay them at that point. Trina, go ahead.
I'm okay with that range. I still hate making the lower end so high when we don't quite know what kind of skill set we're going to hire.
That's what we get to do. That's going to be the fun. You have that exact choice. You're going to be able to go through that list on January 17th and see who's worth 85,000, who's worth 98. I mean, that's how I'm kind of feeling about this right now. I mean, we hold the keys, and I think we'll be able to find a good candidate and pay him the right amount of money to move the city forward, because right now we're neutral. Katie, do you have anything else? You said yes. You're good with that range? Ian? All right. Thanks. And I did kind of give him some new data that he had not gathered, I think, in the process, where our previous administrator wasn't given the 2% raise based off some $1,600 is total. Sure. Yeah. Okay. Thanks. All right. So that resolves number 2. You said on number.
So where you're at is 85 to 98.
Yes.
Correct.
Yes. Number 3, the draft position announcement. You're asking for some help with the highlighted section?
Yes.
I don't know. All right, so he would like us to add what other opportunities and or challenges there would be for a potential candidate to be attracted to Columbus. I am not a mark. I mean, there's lots of challenges in the city. I mean, streets. I don't know what kind of answer you're looking for. You know, we're 30 years behind on road projects. Maybe 25 now if we get this 4,500 miles or square foot or whatever it was.
Well, the visioning that you're going through, what's kind of emerging as the top goals that are coming out of the visioning?
Trina, go ahead.
Oh, no. Just wanted to make sure you have something about, excellent communication skills, and interest in people. Just some of the soft things to add on to it that wind it being so important.
On that note, one thing I thought about was you mentioning in here economic development, downtown development, organizational improvements. Also, maybe some type of I don't know how you tie this in, but Columbus is a very historic community, so with that come challenges. Mm-hmm. It's also a blessing, I don't know if anybody else has more to add. I'm definitely not the marketing guy, but tell him not to get it. Yeah,
It's very true.
I'm sorry. I thought
I
was saying
think
them. My bad.
I think I would just like to see language that really implies we need a self-starter, somebody who works and manages people and very well, the administration. But yeah, and I think Andy brings up a great point about the historic delicate balance.
Yes, it is.
Growth and preserving that. Is really important. What's that?
And our street. Mike, go ahead.
Given that we've spent over a year working on the Roadmap 2050 project, I think we're going to want someone who's able to come in and read through all that data, the documents, and help carry and implement those plans forward. We're going through a comprehensive plan review this year. School districts looking at possibly a referendum next year. I think there's a lot of opportunities, not just with the vicinity, but the community-wide, that I think we're going to have the right person in there to help move forward. All that kind of be coming in right before the plane takes off, so they need to be prepared to get strapped in.
That's the 2050?
Roadmap 2050 was the city planning project that we've done. We haven't brought the draft budget out yet. I think we're kind of waiting for school to announce what their plans are. That our planning director, Matt Driver's been talking. Jason Valerius at MSA, who is the contractor or the consultant with on that.
So I agree along that line, something to the effect of implementing the whatever the shorthand or verbiage would be for the 2050 project the city is about to launch, some sort of verbiage to that effect. We obviously want them to help carry the ball implementing the goals of that project once it's released. Unfortunately, it's not.
Okay.
Anything
I have
else
what I
to add?
need. I have what I need.
Okay. All right, and then finally, the last thing on there is the timeline. There's a, David already touched on it a little bit with Thanksgiving and Christmas, and any concerns with the timeline? I'm happy with the timeline. I mean, I wish it could start sooner, but I understand the limitations there. And the fact that we have bi-weekly meeting, or sorry, wait, 2 times a month. Any thoughts on this? Are we good?
Okay, we'll get it going.
Anything else from you on this item, Dave?
No,
Dave's gonna get it going. Unless there's anything else, I don't have anything else on the agenda. I entertain any motions you would have to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
A motion, a second, any discussion? All in favor say aye. Opposed? We are adjourned.